Good evening. I'd like to call this City Council meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. Please stand and join me in a salute to our flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you're here for the planning board meeting this evening, it's in the annex room next door, so anybody that's here for that, that's where the planning board meeting is starting. They'll be joining us for a joint public hearing in a little bit, but initially they're meeting over there. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Thank you. The reason for suspending the rules are for two important announcements this evening. One from Representative Poirier to give us an update, and the other is from the mayor to give us an update on some downtown revitalization efforts. So that's the reason to suspend. Any questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are operating under suspended rules. At this time, I would invite Representative Poirier to the podium and
Good evening.
Good evening.
So happy to be here with everyone, Mr. President, all the council members. I have brought a crowd with me tonight, and I'd love to bring them up and
Absolutely.
introduce them to you.
Absolutely.
So would everybody join me up here? I'm here tonight to thank all of the people involved and you for being part of the Senior Spectacular, which we held in April. It was the 5th one that I've been involved with, and it's a tremendous effort to put it together, to put it on, and I can't do it without the assistance of many people. And so some of them are standing behind me. And of course, you know, the effort is all for our senior citizens. And I should tell you that the day of the event, we estimated there were about 1,300 who came from all over the area. So I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But your wonderful, esteemed COA director, Madeline McNeely, is with us. And Marion Aspinall, who you know has been involved with the SHINE program for many years and is also on the board. And Joe Viola, who is, who is also on the board and so helpful to Madeline. I'm going to let her speak in a minute. And two of these ladies who are part of the committee who really put tremendous effort in and went over and above. Julie Hall and Carol Katoya. And standing in the back, very demurely, is Mary McGuire. And Mary McGuire was the main sponsor for the event. And Mary is, tell me again, Mary.
Director of Public and Legislative Affairs. That's
Director of Public and Legislative Affairs, I should remember that. And Mary was the largest sponsor, as I said, and she also put on 3 workshops having to do with driving that was very, very helpful to the seniors. And some of you from the council participated as models, which is the last part of the day, and the one that our seniors look most forward to, because they read about you in the newspaper and they hear about you and maybe watch you on cable TV, but they got to see you up close and personal, and I know they enjoy that so much, and I thank those of you who did it, had a good time. How about you, Ty? First time? It was fun, huh?
Me and Julie.
It was just a great day. So if you would allow me, I'd like Madeline just to talk to you for a moment.
Sure.
She didn't tell me I was going to speak, but I'm very delighted to have the opportunity to say thank you professionally and personally to Betty. This is her third event, and as you all know, we don't live in a vacuum. We have a lot of collaborations and partnerships, and the one that we have with Betty is very unique. She's always there. She's always readily available to assist any seniors and the staff at the center. So a personal thank you to you, Betty. And of course, through her generosity, I just said to her that today my coffee pot broke at the center. And it's 95. It was actually installed in 95. And I said, oh, well, there we go, in and out. But Betty used. Thank you very much, Betty.
Thank you, Madeline. Mary, would you please come and just
tell us this.
and just tell the counselors why you were so willing, representing AAA, to invest the time and energy and the sponsorship for our seniors.
Sure. So, first of all, we would do anything for Betty, and I'm sure you all understand that. She's just a terrific person and just a dynamo, and she's my role model. I always tell her that because she just does so many great things and so many kind things for so many people, and she's so caring. So it really was our great delight and privilege at AAA Northeast to sponsor the Senior Spectacular. We participated in the Spectacular for many years, and we were able to do 3 seminars on seniors and driving, which was terrific, and we gave everybody a nice AAA tote bag, and the governor was there, and we spent some time with him. So it really was a terrific event. I just told Betty that it was really one of the best work days I've had this entire year, because it's just so great to see all of those seniors, 1,300 seniors there, having a great time and learning and socializing, and it really is an incredible gift to them. So Betty, thank you for letting all of us be a part of it. It really is a terrific event. Thank you.
Madeline, you want to step up?
Always.
So, so one of the wonderful results of having this affair is all the funds that are garnered. All the attendees come for free, and as those of you who are there know, we give them coffee and something in the morning. They spend the day. They have workshops. They got to visit with the governor for a few minutes. There's over 100 vendors, and we had many sponsors. And as I said earlier, they truly enjoyed the fashion show at the end. And all of the sponsorships are contributing to the cost of running the event. And the money that we don't spend, I share equally between my 3 senior centers, because my legislative district is North Attleboro, part of Attleboro, and part of Mansfield. And so I am here to present Madeline with a check for $3,377.24. I think she can buy a new coffee pot. Maybe she should have a new one and a spare.
Great idea.
Just in case. But without the help of all of these people and your participation, it wouldn't happen. So I don't do it alone. Believe me, there's a lot of people involved. And I have to correct Madeline, it was the 5th one.
5th.
So we've learned along the way, and it's grown and gotten better each time. And this is the 2nd time I've, urged the governor to come. And the interesting thing was, he comes with a whole gaggle of Secret Service guys, and they're rushing him along because in his schedule he has somewhere else to go. And they kept saying, Governor, we gotta go. And they're saying to me, move him along. And finally he turned to them and he said, I am staying until I'm through. So leave me alone. He loved it. He just loved it. And he picked the oldest veteran out of the crowd and spent some time with him and had a picture. We had a World War II veteran there. So it was just a magnificent event. So thank you for everything you've done to help me be able to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty.
And next is the Mayor Hero. I saw him. Oh, he's hello.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. Thank you to the council. I think you all know of the reason that I'm here tonight, and it's to talk about the really good news that we have about the downtown district, particularly the Union Street district. And this is something I think everyone here has been concerned about for a long time. The condition of the Union Street district, basically Kidstown all the way down to the corner where the Chinese restaurant is, the old Kidstown building, which is 37 Union Street. So sometime last year, probably about April last year, I formed a task force called the Blighted and Decadent Properties Task Force, and that brought together the police and fire, water and wastewater, the building inspector and health inspector, and what we did was we started enforcing every imaginable ordinance that we could on any blighted and decadent properties. As a result of that, one particular property owner started to feel a little bit uncomfortable keeping his property. He didn't want to be held to the city standards. And so he started to think about selling his property. At the same time, Bob Perry, he's an Attleboro citizen, he came to me with a group of folks, one of whom is here with me tonight is Eliza Data, and he was working with Eliza, with Bob Jones, Bob Kodatek, and a handful of other folks, and they said that they wanted to turn the Foster building into some condos and apartments. But they needed to get a little portion of the parking lot that was to the left of the Kidstown property. And that's when I asked them if they were interested in maybe just buying the whole block, because they were developers and they were interested. They said, it might not be worth our money. That's when I pledged $295,000 of CDBG money to help make that more worth their while, because then that basically gets rid of the old property owner who wasn't really interested in investing in his property, and we brought in somebody new who needed a portion of that. And so after many meetings, many emails, many phone calls, this was a plan was pretty much shored up by the end of last year. And then it took many more months to get all the paperwork through. But this is a real game changer for Attleboro. This is probably one of the ugliest corners and the ugliest portions of our downtown district. And this is something that hasn't really been touched for about 30 years, probably between 20 and 30 years. So what we have now is a new owner and somebody who's going to invest in the city. And what I'd like to do is actually point out another thing, is that before I forget about this, the city ordinances that we were enforcing that hadn't always been enforced to their fullest, Bill McDonough is here. He participated in that. I want to give him a shout out as well. But we could have actually had a little extra tools in our toolkit if we had something like the vacant property ordinance that you guys are going to talk about tonight. And that's something that Catherine, our economic development director, has worked on quite a bit over the last several months. So having that extra tool in the toolbox, that would be really useful going forward if we're ever in a situation like this again. But what I'd like to do, though, is turn this over to Eliza Data, who is a developer and she's a partner in this project. And she's going to go ahead and tell us a little bit about what to expect over the next several months and next several years with respect to the entirety of the property between Mill Street all the way down to Park Street. So, Eliza, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the council for giving me a few minutes in your agenda tonight to tell you about this project, which we're thrilled to be getting started on. So my name is Eliza Data. I'm a housing developer, as the Mayor mentioned. My company is E3 Development, and I'm partnering with another firm called Affirmative Investments to work with Bob Jones, who now owns kind of the majority of this stretch along Union Street, to do a redevelopment plan. And we're really excited because with the acquisition of this latest parcel, 15 Union, that happened last Friday, we are able to start moving for real on the first phase of redevelopment. So what we're envisioning is 3 phases. The first phase will be 59 units of rental housing in what's called the Foster building. I'm learning it has a lot of other names as well. But that one's 37 Union. We have a great plan, and we've been working for a year now to pull that plan together. And with this acquisition, we will be appearing before the ZBA in a few weeks, right, Jack? Yeah. To present our plans. And I apologize that I wasn't able to bring visuals tonight, but we'll be presenting a full presentation on the building plans for that project on August 8th, I believe. Anyway, so the first phase of the building, the first phase of the project will be 59 units of rental housing. We expect then to move down the block to what's called 61 Union to do some additional residential development there. And then the third and final phase will be some commercial development up towards the corner of Park Street and Union. And so altogether, we're looking at 100+ units of mixed income housing. The first phase, which we'll be bringing to the city for zoning approvals in a few weeks, we think that's about a $24 million project, and we'll be looking to leverage about $20 million of investment from the state to support the redevelopment. We're going to be using historic credits to restore the facade of the building and the windows. We just got word this week that we've gotten historic approvals, preliminary approvals from the federal government, which is fantastic. We've been in conversations with the state, both the Department of Housing and Community Development and Mass Housing, which has workforce housing funds, to bring some of the money that's needed to renovate the building. The units will be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and we're looking to set rents that will serve a wide range of incomes. So some of the units will be more deeply affordable and set aside for households earning up to about $25,000 a year. The next tier will be serving households that earn about $50,000 a year, and then the middle income households that we're looking to develop there will serve households earning about $80,000 a year. So a broad range, and our market study tells us there's deep demand across all of these income spectrums here in Attleboro. The state, just again to give you a preview, is really excited about this project. They're committed to gateway cities like Attleboro. They love the location near the commuter rail station. They're excited about the mix of incomes and the preservation of this historic building. And so I think you'll see a lot of excitement from the state as well as from our team, and the support we've gotten from the mayor and the planning department has been great as we've been putting our plans together. So just wanted to say thank you. We're thrilled to be really starting on this project, and look forward to talking to you all more about it as we move forward. So is that a good overview? Yeah. Jack, did you want to say anything?
Hi, Jack Jacoby, 144 Bank Street. I'm the attorney for the project. A few minutes ago, the Planning Board approved a division into the 3 lots for the 3 phases. We also filed today with the Zoning Board for the special permit we need to establish the housing. That is going to be on for August 8th. In about 10 days, we'll be filing with the Conservation Commission. That will be on for its first hearing on August 14th. So we're moving very expeditiously to try and get the permitting in place to demonstrate to the state in the fall that this project can be a reality. And so that's basically where we are from a permitting state.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the Council Reynolds?
I'm just a little confused. I'm excited about this project. It sounds wonderful. It's long overdue. For some reason, I was under the impression that the CDBG application had not yet been accepted as complete. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, the CDBG money has not been finalized. This was a pledge, a commitment that if all of the requirements necessary for a CDBG application were met, that the city would basically support their project with $295,000, and that would initiate with me.
Okay, and so if something happens and that doesn't occur, if it's not pushed forward as completed, would that $295,000 be available for some other group, or is this something that you think will definitely is going to happen?
I'm confident it's going to happen because we have a really competent developer who's very invested into this project. Developers are perfectly aware, and the partners are perfectly aware of all the hoops and hurdles that have to go along with applying for CDBG and making sure they meet all the requirements. It's not just you submit an application, then arbitrarily the money is chosen. I think you know that. There's a lot of requirements that have to be met, and they're they're going to take care of that. I'm not
So as
worried.
long as everything goes well, the money still stays in Attleboro. If anything fell through, the money would still stay in Attleboro? Would
Oh,
it-
yeah,
it would still
absolutely.
stay? It's not gonna go back to the
Oh, no,
federal?
no, certainly not, no.
Okay.
No. That, the money, if the money didn't go for this project, it could then go for another
For something
project.
else.
Yeah, so I could also, we could also just say, you know what, they don't need the money after all, they don't want the money after all, they don't need it. Okay, fine, we just give it to somewhere else, so, and some other applicant, but that's not the case. Just to be clear.
So when the application is finally approved, though, we'll get notice of that?
Oh,
That it's
certainly,
fine?
absolutely,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
good, thank you. Questions?
Any other questions? Council Conti?
Yes, I have a question for Eliza. Eliza, I'm somewhat familiar, I think, with what you're talking about. Both buildings are going to be developed in the same manner, is that correct?
Yeah, that's
So both buildings are going to be, the rents are going to be set by mass housing, correct?
Oh, okay. So both buildings we expect to develop as residential, so with apartments. The unit mix and the income mix might be different for the second phase. It's a little further out, so we'll have to see. But yes, we expect mass housing to be a partner in this first phase.
So on the first phase, the Foster building, 10% of the units will be market rate and the rest will be mass housing?
So the way that we're looking at it, a minimum of 51% of the units have to be more deeply affordable to meet the city's requirement under the CDBG program. And then the balance, so I think the split is 31 units more deeply affordable, and then the remaining 28 units will be middle income, and those will be supported by mass housing's funding.
Thank you.
All set?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Just, and your application with the state, at what stage is that at right now?
Right, yeah. So let me tell you a little bit kind of about what's coming in that respect. So the state has an annual funding application round for housing development projects like this one. It's extremely competitive. We put our application in last fall, and we were not invited to submit a full application because the state asked us to work on a few things. They asked us to advance our historic approvals, which we've done. They asked us to start the local approvals process, which we're now doing, and we'll be doing that this summer. And they asked that the city look at what it could do in terms of a local funding match, because that's really important to the state. And so that's the conversation about the CDBG. So all the things that the state asked us to work on, we have addressed. And so the next funding round will be this fall. There will be a pre-application process and then a full application in February of 2020. That's usually the timeline. And then if all goes well, we will get an award next summer, so summer of 2020, and we would expect to be starting construction the following spring.
So, can I just ask a clarifying question? So, it's 20 million you're looking to the state for?
It's a combination of resources, but in kind of altogether, that's what it works out to be. We'll be looking for, there are different tools that we can use to do a development project like this. There are historic tax credits, there are housing tax credits, there's some soft money that the state gives out. Mass Housing will give us a loan for the project as well. So part of what's needed to restore buildings like this back to active use after so many years is you need to weave together a lot of these different resources. So.
Just one more. So, while you were saying this spring, next fall, spring, so should everything go appropriately and the gods are shining down and everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen, when will the shovels be in the ground?
Early 2021.
2021. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Council Holmes?
Thank you. Just to follow up right from where Vice President Parika left off. So you had said spring 2021, and then you're thinking phase one, and then what would the second and third phase look like in terms of time frame, just if you have any idea? I know
those are a few more years out. We want to establish kind of the success of this first phase, get it rented up, kind of bring more bodies to downtown, and then see what's possible in terms of the specifics of the future phases. So that's a little harder to pin down at this point, but we'll be continually thinking about what comes next and when the right time is.
Okay, thank you. Very exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
And if I can add one other thing to that, we inherited 3 tenants, and 2 of them have leases, one's month to month, so we have to let that run its course before we could knock down the buildings that they're in. We have talked to the Economic Development Director, Catherine, about whether it might be possible to help these people move somewhere sooner. Not sure that's going to happen, but you know, we had no choice to buy the property. We had to take the tenants.
Any other questions or comments? Any other?
The building formerly known as Kidstown should be coming down sometime fairly soon. That we don't expect to wait a couple of years for. And Eliza, Jack, do you have more of a timeline on that?
Yeah, we're thinking that's coming down in the fall.
Yeah.
It's the building inspector has issued some orders, I think, already, and I'm sure he'd be pleased to know that we're preparing the application, the demo application right now.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Very exciting. Thanks. So, Virginia can let the planning board, or Mayor, as you're walking by, will you let the planning board know we're ready for the joint public hearing? Thank you. As soon as they come, Steve will go right to the joint public hearing.
Without coming to us.
I couldn't read them.
I think the mayor's will call. I don't know. Dress code as far as that's why I didn't want to go.
Maybe somebody should go Virginia's heading over there.
What?
Virginia's.
Oh, good.
What did you say? This is the joint public hearing, zoning petition for Thursday. Yes, that is.
Okay, great, thank you.
What is it? It was very.
Hello. Hi, Scott. Scott, how you doing?
How are you? You guys have a busy night tonight?
Yeah, it's one of those
Like,
summer
yeah.
meetings. Hello.
Hey, Fred.
Hey, how you doing?
Fred. Good evening.
Hello, sir. How are you? Mr. Denisi down with you?
He's on the boat.
Who's the vice? Mr. Gill. Okay,
You ready to?
we're ready to go. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of the joint public hearing?
This is a joint public hearing with the planning board relative to the rezoning petition from Sterry Street Auto Sales, Inc., 195 Collins Street, Attleboro, Mass., from single residence B in industrial zoning to general business zoning, said premises being Assessor's Plat 20, Assessor's Lot number 399, being approximately 1 acre.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Mr. President, members of the council, and Mr. Chairman, and members of the planning board, my name is Edward Casey. I'm a lawyer in Attleboro, and I represent Sterry Street Auto Sales, Inc. in this application for the rezoning of property located at 495 Collins Street in South Attleboro. And one of the presenters this evening is Scott Rolfe, who right now is delivering to each of you a set of plans showing what would be proposed for the site were it to be rezoned from its existing zoning, which is half single residence and half industrial. Are you done, Mr. Rolfe?
They're making.
Would you put up the area? The property is identified in the city's assessors records as Plat 20, Lot 399. It contains about 1 acre of land. It is unimproved. In fact, it is somewhat of a desolate look to it. There are some piles of material on it. There are a few shrubs, bushes, and trees. But the aerial photograph is going to be very instructive for you. The aerial photograph shows the property, if I can walk over to the plan. This is the property where I'm pointing now. This is Route 1A. This is the mobile station. This is the train station, and this is Trimont. So to the north, we have a mobile home park and a couple of single residences. To the east, we have the mobile gas station. To the west, we have Trimont. And to the south, we have the parking for the MBTA train station and the station itself. Collins Street is a busy street. It provides access for the MBTA commuters. It also provides the means of access for those motorists that are coming south on 1A who want to go into the Bristol Place Plaza, so that they turn at Collins Street, they go around past the train station, they go under Route 1A, and then into all of the businesses that are located there, including Market Basket. It's often congested, especially during rush hour. Now, that point was brought home recently because on behalf of Sterry Street Auto, I made application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for some zoning relief so that Jamie Trammell, the principal of Sterry Street, might pursue securing a permit for a marijuana business. The Zoning Board of Appeals listened attentively and heard the comments from neighbors. And the comments from the neighbors were, it's awfully busy on Collins Street, and if you're proposing to put a business here on this location, you're only going to make worse that traffic situation. So the zoning board said no. Jamie Trammell, the principal of Sterry Street, who is here as well, had been trying to decide what to do with this property. He's owned it for almost 20 years. And in that it is half industrial and half residential, it really limits the uses to which that property might be put as it is presently zoned. Recognizing the demand for off-street parking associated with the train station, he hit upon the idea of using that site for parking. So the plan that has been prepared by Andrews Survey and Engineering reflects what the engineer, Scott Rolfe, and Jamie Trammell believe to be the best use of this property. That is, not to be a draw for new motorists to come in, not to make worse that traffic situation, but to help address the lack of adequate parking for those people that want to commute into Boston or into Providence. And that is important for you to bear in mind, because at an earlier public hearing dealing with the rezoning, I know that I had discussed with some members of the council the whole issue of rezoning. Why should the municipal council consider rezoning? And one of the points that I made, or one of the councilors made, is that it ought not simply benefit the applicant, but that there ought to be some municipal benefit associated with the rezoning. And I submit to you that rezoning this to general business so that it might be used for a parking lot is a benefit to this city. It's a benefit to the motorists in that area. Obviously, he's only going to do it if he can make a profit from it, and there's nothing wrong in that as well. One of the issues that often comes up with any rezoning is, are we confronted with spot zoning? Well, fortunately not. Because the mobile station is zoned general business. The mobile station right across from the property is zoned general business. And I think that, I don't know whether there are any neighbors who reside in the mobile home park or own those single-family homes. When evaluating what might be done with this property, Scott and Jamie and I talked about, well, maybe we would apply to rezone the entire property industrial. Just make the lot all residential or make it all industrial. And it didn't seem to make sense for either of those alternatives. It doesn't make sense to say, let's turn that 1 acre into residential. And the reason I say that is because it is surrounded by business-type activities. It would be nice, I suppose, for the people living in the mobile home park or those single-family homes, but it is not what we want to see in this city, where we now put residential right next to all of that commercial activity. And if we were to rezone it, or if you were to rezone it to industrial entirely, then you're pushing to the neighbors in the mobile home park an industrial activity. So I submit to you that this is not spot zoning because of the presence of the mobile station across the street, and that the best use to which this property might be put is a parking lot. And with that, I would invite Scott Rolfe to come up and to discuss his plan.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Scott Rolfe, Andrew Survey Engineering, North Attleboro. I'm going to state the obvious because you have all this information on your plan. You've probably already seen this, but I want to point out to you where the zone lines are on the property. As Eddie said, this is a 1 acre parcel. We have 240 feet of frontage on Collins Street here, about 190 on Collins Street here. We have a split zone here. We have single residence B from the line that runs right through the middle of the property. You can see that on your handouts, I think, pretty clearly. It's industrial on this side, single residence B on this side. From the center of the street here, it's, again, the industrial goes down, the industrial goes down to the center of the street. So this is industrial, this is single residence B, this is general residence. Across the street, see this line continues up and we have, of course, single residence B, then you have general residence A. It's quite a hodgepodge of zoning that all comes together at this point. So what we're proposing to do is to extend the general business here across this site, eliminate the residential and the industrial zoning, and make this all general residence. We have a parking lot here. We've done soil testing for stormwater design and so forth. We had done a parking lot here quite a while back. We just never went forward with it. Created a single access here, away from, in the middle, away from the two intersections to make it as safe as possible coming in. We have a grade differential from the parking lot here to Collins Street, which kind of prohibits us to have access from this side out. We want to create a nice vegetated buffer here, perhaps some kind of a landscape mound with plantings on the screen from the residential views across the street. And we're proposing 104 parking stalls at 9 by 18 9 feet by 18 feet dimension, 24-foot drive aisles. Landscape is nice, we can with the area that we have, and it would be lit. There's no utilities that per se beyond there that service anything. So it's just an open parking area.
Any questions from Council Lewis?
Scott, nice to see you again. Question for you. When I'm looking at the location of the lot at 495, people are going to be walking most likely to the train station. My concern would be crosswalks, stoplights, things to protect the pedestrians.
We propose a walk coming off the property in this location here out to Collins Street. There are sidewalks directly across the street, so what we do is we perhaps talk to the city about putting the crosswalk in to get from here to the sidewalk on the other side.
Any, just as, I think I'm good for right now, President Cooper, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the council at this time? Council Reynolds.
So my comment, if this is a comment, I would just suggest to those of you thinking about this that I think it's a pretty good idea, quite frankly. You know, it's down in my ward. There's always not enough parking down there. I think it's probably the best use of that land as a parking lot. It's been empty for a long time. You know, sometimes there's storage of machinery if somebody's doing something down that end. But I think for the number of people that would be walking out of there, 104, I think the idea of the sidewalks and the crosswalk and all of that would be acceptable. And I think the neighbors would be in agreement with it because it's been empty a long time and they want to see something done to it. So if it's done properly, I think it probably is the best use of that property. That's my comment.
Council Conti, then Vice President Preca.
So, Councilor, Mr. Casey, if the council and the planning board decide to rezone this parcel as general business, it can be used for any allowable use in a general business zone. It could become anything besides a parking lot. Would your client be amenable to a restriction that it can only be used for a parking lot?
May I have a moment? Mr. Conti, I understand completely why you're asking me that question, and I consulted with Jamie, and the concern that he and I both have is let's imagine that the train station moves. And now he has a piece of property that is improved as a parking lot, but by virtue of the restriction, it can only be used for a parking lot, rendering it uneconomic because there would be no vehicles to park there. So I don't know, as I'm standing here in front of you, how I might be able to address that without impairing what he would need is some flexibility in exploring how the property might otherwise be used. I don't know if he would be agreeable to, say, a 3-year or 4-year restriction on it being used only for a parking lot as a way to give you some protection. But I couldn't recommend that there be a permanent limitation.
If I may follow up. So if that's the case, then you know the zoning ordinances probably better than I do. Is there a way that this municipal council can issue a special municipal council permit to allow the use of a parking lot in a residential, single residence B and industrial zone?
Unlike some towns, I think, Jack, you correct me if I'm wrong, towns often have provisions in their bylaws that allow for the special permit granting authority to issue a use variance. We don't have, there is no permit granting authority that is able to issue a use variance. So I like that idea because it would allow him to do what he wants to do, and then if he wanted to change it, he'd have to come back here and talk with you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Vice President Brica.
Thank you. Along the similar lines of Mr. Delicio, as the Chair of Traffic and Transportation, I have the distinct honor of trying to manage circumstances as it pertains to crosswalks, sidewalks, stop signs, illumination, and things like that. So the first thing I did when I looked at this plan was identify the area in which the train passengers would get over there. Are there any? I would like to know maybe about how you plan on illuminating the parking lot, especially in that corner where if you're looking for a crosswalk in there, if the sidewalks are handy. I haven't been down there. I'm happy to go down there and take a look, but to legally install and be in compliance with the state, it has to be from a handicap accessible sidewalk to a handicap accessible sidewalk. It 4:00 on a Friday afternoon in the middle of December, it's pitch black, and it is a high traffic area. So if the permit is granted, there are people parking in there. In very short order, my phone's going to start ringing. So I would like to know if you could maybe give us some more details with regards to that, or what your plan is for that location.
Scott, would you come forward, because some people may be listening at home and they can't hear your honeyed voice. Are you able to answer the question? Did you understand the question?
Yeah. Thank you. The site would be adequately lit, as all business and commercial sites are in the city. There would be illuminated by poles. The lights would be dark sky compliant, and they would be limited to shining just on the property. We're not allowed to shine beyond the property lines to offend any of the abutters. Sometimes in a commercial area, sometimes neighbors welcome spillage onto their property because it just adds to the security, but we're bound to not being able to do that.
But Councilor Parika is addressing a potential traffic or pedestrian safety issue with illuminating a pedestrian in proximity to the roadway.
We would have to explore what's there now for street lighting, and if it's inadequate, we'd have to look at what could be done to illuminate specifically that intersection where people would cross. There's sidewalks all the way down to the train from there, but from this site, there's just that one crossing to get across the street.
Council Blair, and then Council Reynolds.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up to my recollection, there is lighting down there. I've been down there numerous times at night to go to Home Depot or Market Basket or whatever, and I can't remember it being a dark intersection. So in my own mind, I think it's pretty well lit now, and if it isn't well lit, it wouldn't take too much to light that intersection. And I'm sure, Mr. Casey, your client would be more than willing to light that up a little.
I'm sure that he would.
Okay.
But if we'll be happy to investigate the matter, and if, Mr. President, you choose to keep, if you don't, I think I would like to see the hearing closed, but for receipt of responses to any matters that are raised by the council, we would be able to respond in a timely fashion, reporting what type of lighting is presently in place, whether it's, in your view, adequate or not.
Sounds good to me.
Council Reynolds.
So I want to get back to the idea of why it would be a good use of that property. I mean, I realize to Councilor Conti that there was a time, and it wasn't too long ago, that the state had talked about possibly moving the train station to an area on the Bork's family lot. So there wasn't a discussion about that happening. And if that were to occur, then obviously the owner of this property would want to do something different. But keep in mind that at that time, so wouldn't all the other parking lots be wanting to, the state would be wanting to do something different with those parking lots. So I think at that time there would be a lot of discussion about what would be happening. you'd have all these empty parking lots. That I think is for something down the road. At this moment in time, we would have to count on the fact that they would be maybe doing that, because I think the state has kind of left it open that they're not going to move it immediately. It would be 3, maybe 5 years down the road anyway if it were going to happen. And I just don't think we should hold somebody's property to do something that they can do that's beneficial. Those are my comments.
Thank you. And Attorney Casey, are you planning some type of sort of security and safety plan with this? Is it going to be gated? Is it going to be open all the time? What are the hours? Are what's sort of the plan around that for this lot, which is connected but kind of sort of not really?
I invite Jamie to come up and offer a little bit of the detail. Won't be manned.
Right.
Jamie Termel, good evening. Realistically, we'd be mirroring the MBTA's parking lot hours that they currently use. Realistically, their parking lot's empty right around 7 o'clock at night. It's empty and done for the night. In regards to fencing or anything, it'd be pretty well wide open, just like theirs is as well.
Okay. Council Conti.
So Jamie, you're gonna plan some kind of automated parking system for collecting fees?
Yes, sir.
And in your income and expense analysis of being able to prepare the lot, to put in the groundwater system, to pave it, to put in the lighting, we had talked earlier about a 3-year permit. Would you recoup your expenses in a 3-year period?
No, we would not. It would be closer to 5-6 years.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Jamie or the team at this time? Council Palacio.
Jamie, thank you for the plan. I think it does make sense for that location. My question, again, along the lines of safety, will you have any sort of security measures where it is kind of away and off the beaten path just a little bit? Would you have security measures in line of security cameras, things of that nature?
We are currently thinking about installing security cameras, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So any other questions or comments for the team? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, just expand on the answer that was offered to Mr. Conti about the period of amortization. That may be true, that it would be 5 or 6 years before he could recoup the investment that he makes. But if the train station were to, just hypothetically, be relocated after 3 years, then he would be out the balance of the investment. So I don't see that if you're thinking, well, if he would need 5 years to recoup his investment, let's talk about having a 5-year restriction. I don't think that would be fair, given that I and he need to think worst case. And there is one other point, too, that if you're concerned about the people that are the residences that are across the street, that are to the north, under your zoning ordinance, whenever there is a business zone that is next to a residential zone, there is a requirement for a 25-foot buffer yard along with screening. That screening can be in the nature of a fence, evergreens, arborvitae of that nature, in order to screen the residences from the business activity. So this is not a situation where you are abandoning the residences to now confronting business activity. There would be some sort of a barrier.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? And anyone to speak neither for nor against?
My name is Harry White, and I happen to live at 474 Collins Street, which is one of the residential areas over there. And my only concern would be that we have a lot of people that actually walk coming down Collins Street around the corner to get to the train station. There's people on bicycles, whatever. Now, that buffer zone that they have, I'm in full agreement with. I have talked to the mayor before. That particular corner coming off of Collins Street and turning right by the mobile station is a very sharp corner. All I ask is that maybe improved lighting on that corner and maybe a directional sign showing that it is a sharp corner, or slow down, sharp corner, something of that nature, so that people are aware when folks are coming out of the T station, they come around that corner and they get the gas, right? So it's an area of concern for safety that way. The buffer zone I like because right now, the undeveloped property, they happen to have, the weeds grow up and they grow to such a height, it's hard to see anything there. However, our Public Works has been coming by and trimming the weeds, which is a very big help, right? So I have no objection. Now, the way I see that picture, the only entrance and exit is on the mobile side, right? Yes, sir. Okay, so that's all I have to say. If you could just do something about the safety issues there and the lighting, that would be good. And you said that the lighting would definitely point not towards the residents.
Mr. White?
Okay, I'm from full agreement with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Is there, any questions for Mr. White as he walks away? Anyone else here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Any questions from the planning board at this time? See any reason to keep this public hearing open? Who has this?
I do not.
Okay, so we will close this public hearing. Thank you very much. Oh, did you have?
Close the public hearing, but for receipt.
Well, we can get anything we ask for during the public, we don't have to have the but-fors. We asked you for it, send it to us. Everybody's happy. Any other questions or comments, Councilor Clovis? Okay, so this public hearing is closed. And Planning Board, thank you. Are you resuming in?
We are.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a good night.
It'd be an improvement.
So, moving on to the public hearings, Mr. Withers, would you read the
Yes.
notice for the
Next public
first
hearing.
public hearing this evening?
Okay, the next public hearing is relative to the application to waive section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages on city property submitted by the Friends of Cape and Park Zoo for their event on October 5th, 2019.
Excellent. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Anyone neither for nor against? So this is a pretty typical thing we've gotten from the park, Friends of the Park before. I think when I'm comfortable closing and assigning to committee, and if we have any questions at the time of the committee, or we can always reach out to one of the friends for additional information if we need to, but they've done this several times and it's been very successful.
The now former president, she just moved, so they're reorganizing, so the past practice that they've gone through, they're kind of shuffling around a little bit, so that might be, there may have been a little bit of communication interruptions. That would be why no one was here.
Sure, and I'm okay with it. I think we're all good with it, and I think that it's been successful. There's been no issues. This has gone on for many years, and it's a great event. So if they want to come to the committee and promote that, I'm happy to do that. But at this time, is this license committee? Do you see any reason to keep this open at this time?
I do not.
Excellent, so that public hearing is closed.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Continued public hearing relative to amending Section 3 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as it pertains to buildings and the adoption of the Board of Building Regulations and Standards Stretch Code, which is 780 CMR 115.AA, an appendix to the Massachusetts State Building Code. The amendments may be reviewed at the city clerk or the city council offices during regular business hours, and this was continued to today.
Excellent. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Mr. McDonough.
Thank you. Bill McDonough, Building Commissioner here in Attleboro. Sorry for my voice. I want to thank you, President Cooper and the council for holding this open. I apologize I wasn't able to come last time. Things happen, but I did want to speak in favor of this ordinance change, the adoption of the stretch code. 2 or 3 years ago, myself, Stephanie Davies, and Gary Rajan, plus Mayor Dumas, came to the council for the same exact reason. We were all in favor of it then. We're all obviously in favor of it still today. At that time, the state had 200 municipalities that had adopted the stretch code. That was 2 plus years ago. As of June of this year, there's 271 municipalities now involved that have adopted the stretch code. That's a 20% increase in the last 2 plus years, and it's roughly, I think, 77-78% of the state. I think that this is long overdue. It's overdue in my eyes. You know, it's tough to look. It's, you know, I'm a free thinker, right? I like to think for myself. I don't want anybody else telling me that, hey, everybody else is doing it. It's got to be a thing to do, right? We've researched it. I've researched it. For the positives that and I'm basing this solely on the stretch code. You know, this isn't as far as green community stuff with me. I'm the building commissioner. I deal with, this is the code, right? And from the benefits that this gains for the community, for the state, for the country, for the world, you know, it's good. Percentage of, you know, we do, this past year I think we did 16, plus or minus 1,600 building permits, not including electrical, plumbing, things like that. Out of those, I think we did 50 new houses last year. This stretch code, 98% of it is concerned on new houses. The commercial aspect of it, minimal at best. You know, it deals with buildings over 100,000 square feet, which is a pretty large building. Certain laboratories, things like supermarkets, things that have energy where they use an awful lot of it, where they want to, and it goes by a little bit of a different formula. So I kind of leave that off to the side because I don't think that that's what we're really, you know, concerned with. I know that from what I've heard in the past from builders that came up, it's all about, you know, 2 things, right? It's money, and it's, I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to be told, I've got the building code, we've got the base code, this is what it is. If we want to do better than that, then we'll do that on our own, right? Well, the building code, look, the state and the building code is just that, right? They tell us what to do. It's, you know, they keep us safe and they keep us efficient. This is just the residential building code for the state of Massachusetts. It's the international building code. They also make, every time we adopt a new code, an amendment book. So this is amendment to all of these codes. So some of these, this is basically telling you, for the most part, these are more stringent than these. That's what the state does. Look, you know, as a building commissioner, I'm pretty proud of that our state takes those initiatives. The stretch code is a similar thing. It's an amendment to the base code. Everybody uses the base code, right? Many more states are adopting their own stretch code or their own portion of a stretch code. Stretch code is called the stretch code because it's a stretch from what the base code is. The stretch is so much closer now than it ever was. Back in, I think it was 12, 13, there was a huge change in the energy code. We all felt it. That was a big deal. But we didn't have any choice. It was what it was. Everybody's used to it. They know what it is. They know what it does. And it's working. This is something just a little bit extra. The average house, I've got some paperwork here that basically kind of says that the average house on a base code, new house, is built to about a 62 to a 70 HERS rating. HERS rating that you need to get to is 55 per the stretch code. It's 1% of every, it's based on a 100 scale, obviously, and it's 1% better each time. That's how it drops down. To gain those, it's mostly from appliances. It's from appliances in your house. It's from efficiencies of your water, your heat, things like that. And there's trade-offs. You want to put solar, it'll raise your 55 to a 57 or to a 59. There's different trade-offs there. Our department isn't going to be affected monetarily or time-wise with a change of code. Obviously, when there's ever a change, you've got some growing pains to do. You've got some education that you have to make up. But this has been around and it's been in many towns for quite some time now. So as far as the stretch code, my office isn't going to be pained with any extra work, let's say. This is all on the consumer, all on the builder or consumer. If you're building your own house, you're dealing with it. But again, this is only for new residential 4-story and under buildings. Nothing is done as far with the stretch code any different than the base code. The stretch code is all it is. It's not, you don't take the base code out and you just apply the stretch code. You've got the base code and this is an amendment to it. So there's certain things that the stretch code is going to take care of instead of the base code. 90% of it is still going to be on the base code. I don't know if I'm talking and losing you guys or what.
Makes perfect sense.
And numbers, right? So the other part of it is numbers. Now, I have some paperwork here that, you know, it's easier to look at numbers. Now, I don't fully trust everybody's numbers on either end. I wouldn't know it until I've actually built a house or had people build houses that could actually show me what the information is. But if you want, I've got some pamphlets that are just a thing showing you what a 2,500 square foot house, 3-bedroom, single-family house in Worcester from last year, and what the changes, what the differences would be cost-wise. Don't know if you're interested in it. Or so one of these is for a heated house, and the other is for a oil heated house.
Hand them to Peter, Bill, and he'll just pass them right down.
One of each. I highlighted up top. It's going to be tough. They look exactly the same. All right. Maybe do one first and then send the rest out. I need one of each though, so I can talk.
You need a cheat sheet?
Yeah, these were stapled upside down.
Oh, okay. I need one of those.
Yes.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
there's
two.
one orange and one orange.
One of them is for, and it's highlighted on the top. One of them will say natural gas. One of them will say oil heat. So there's a little bit of a.
Which one am I looking at first, Bill?
Which one do you want to look at?
I'll let you pick.
Well, all right, let's look at natural gas, right? So on the first page, you'll see the builder and the home buyer. You'll see the two different categories there. For the cost, for the adjustments in the HERS rate or fee, it'll show that it's $2,600. Now, you gotta remember this is based on about a 2,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, single-family house. Now, again, this was, I think, in 2017, so, you know, like I said, and I also think that these numbers may be a little bit low, but even if we rounded it up to $3,000, just to, you know, so the adjustments, what they're saying is that it's gonna cost the builder $3,000 more money to build that house than it would on the base code. When you, with a HERS rater, and when you are going through the stretch code, HERS rater takes in your information, the builder's information. They put it through a program, and they develop your program for the things that you're going to need to do in your house. From the efficiency of water heaters, the efficiency of your heaters, things like that. So in that, there's rebates that your HERS rater is also going to get you. And builders are going to hire their guys that are gonna work for them. So you pay a HERS rater anywhere, probably, I think it's probably around the $500 to $1,000 range to do all this for you, which will be a cost, obviously, to them, which is included in that price from what this says. When they do that, they fight to get you the rebates from Mass Save, things like that. So they can defray probably around 50%, up to 50%, up to $10,000 actually, of that cost through benefits through those programs. So basically, this is showing up to be about $1,000 for a cost compared to the base code. That'll cost more. And then they break it down to what the person's actually, it'll cost them this much money more for a down payment on their house. The annual mortgage payment's gonna be up $77. But it shows that after a year and then after 2 years, you're actually getting that money back. That's how quickly they're claiming that you're going to get that money back. If you look at the second page of that, you'll see that it shows the breakdown, like the HERS rating. On a base code, it says about 66 is what an average house would come up to. I believe it's probably closer to a 70, but the stretch code needs to be at a 55. Construction cost, they're saying that it's gonna cost you $500 for the HERS rating, just to hire that HERS rater guy. The windows, it's telling you it's gonna be an upcharge of about $500. For heating, for the change in the gas furnace, it's about a $300 upcharge. For cooling, for better condensers, things like that, it's about a $400. Your domestic hot water, probably a $700. Duct leakage to outside, they're gonna have to do some more work on their duct work stuff, so it's about a $200. So that's where they're coming up with that $2,600. That was one of the big things that we had talked about, that we heard people talking about before, about how much is this actually gonna cost the builder, and then how much, and that money will get passed on to the consumer. If you look at these numbers, it's showing that 2,500 square foot house is gonna cost somebody about $3,000 more to build that house. Their claims, and this is straight from the DOER. Look, and like I said before, that's gonna be at the bottom level, I think. But I don't think that at the higher end of that, even if it's twice as much money as that, I don't think that that's enough to not be in favor of this program. And the other one I gave you is just a same breakdown of an oil house. So I know that the cost was a big factor, and I don't believe, and you can see that within a year or two you're going to have that cost come right back to you. So I don't believe that that's a reason for halting this, slowing it down. With the expansion of all the towns and cities that are taking this on at the rate that they're taking it on, it's not something that's failing. I don't know of any city or town that's opted out of this, which you can do at any time. So I don't see the negative aspect of this. I really don't. I think the time is now for sure.
Councilor Blair, and then Cody.
Just one question, Bill.
Sure.
I can see you believe in this, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
That's okay.
argue the point, but discuss it. But why, if this is the right thing to do, why doesn't the state building code that they send down here include this?
They offer it. They offer it. It's not mandated. It's not mandated yet. I believe that it is. It's definitely on that curve. We were here, but I remember when I started about 14 years ago, stretch code was a swear word in our business. You don't talk, look, hey, you got the stretch code, oh my God, seriously, that's how it was. But we grow and we learn, right? And then just like the code, when we first adopted that international code, the code book for international was this big, and our amendments were this big. Now it's switched because the international code takes into all the consideration from all the states that it takes. They take all their info in and they see what they can do to make it better. We did the same thing with the stretch code. The stretch code, pretty much, mainly the stretch code's kind of stayed the same, but the base code is getting up to be right there with it.
That's the object of my question.
Yes. So so your school of thought is just leave it alone because it's close enough.
No, I'll make
right.
it.
Or make it, like I said, it's going to be there. I mean, there's talk now that down the road they're going to be net zero emissions and stuff where they're gonna, if you have a commercial building, you're gonna have to create as much energy as you use. I mean, that's real talk in the state of Massachusetts. So they're constantly working. It's been the last 2 years has been a whirlwind of energy conservation stuff. It's not gonna go away, and on that end of it, you might as well go that way if that's the cost of doing business. You might as well do it and reap other benefits if they're there.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Council Conti.
So, Bill, thank you. I just have to point out to you and to my fellow councilors and to the people at home that the information that you've given us is from the Department of Energy Resources, and therefore it's subject to their slant. They're the ones that are promoting the green initiative and the stretch code. So this information is from the promoters of the stretch code. So I have to say I'm a little skeptical of the numbers. The other thing I wanted to ask
I said
you
the
is-
same thing. I said it the same thing.
Right.
Right.
It's one side.
Yep.
So, if you would please, you mentioned that in 2013, there was an energy impact on the building code. Could you just elaborate on what happened in 2013?
Sure. The energy code at the time didn't include things like blower door testing, didn't include duct blast testing, which were the two major deals. They also upped the R values of the prescriptive code. So if you wanted to build a house and you wanted, building code says you put an R49 in the ceiling, an R30 in the floor, and an R20 on the walls. That wasn't the way it was back then. It was an R30, R38, things like they've upped the R values. Also, blower door test, it's a leakage thing, right? So air leakage and all that. So they make you put in air exchangers, or your bath fans have to run more to exchange the air because they made the houses that much more tight. Those things still haven't changed. But those are the things, that was the big jump that happened back then, was that now you had to get a blower door test done. You can have a HERS rater do it, or you can have a certified company do it. But they come in at the end of the job, before you can give them occupancy. They go in, they tape all the stuff up, shut the doors, shut the windows, put the bag on the front door, put the fan in, and then they test how much leakage is in the house. And it has to meet a certain number. If it doesn't, then you got to go back in and you got to tighten stuff up.
So, the building code is made up of a panel of building inspectors? Nationwide?
Yes.
And as the improvements in technology and knowledge of these tight homes has improved, the building inspectors themselves have found ways of increasing the standard towards that tighter house.
Yes.
Is that a correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've most often seen this type of work done through Mass Save. When I'm looking out looking at houses, and I don't know if you get involved in any of that at all. When someone calls Mass Save and they come in and they insulate a house and they work on a house, they don't typically have to pull a building permit,
Yes.
correct?
They do, yeah.
They do pull a
Yes, they
building
do.
permit.
Yes, Mass Save it's a pretty good portion. There's quite a bit of it that goes on. They'll call there's usually a local contractor who does a lot of that exact work, and they'll come in and they pull permits all the time. They call it a weatherization.
So, in your experience in Attleboro, have people been calling Mass Save to get their houses, their existing houses, up to the stretch code level?
To the stretch code level, I wouldn't say that that's the level. They call Mass Save to help get their insulation factors and their weatherization tighter and better.
But no one's trying to get to the
They're not,
stretch code.
because they're all existing homes. So if you went in there to try to do it in the stretch code, you'd go in there, you'd have to, it's like an Energy Star type of thing,
No, I think I asked you this question last week when I visited you, but I'd like you to tell all the councilors the answer to the question, if you would. In your experience in looking at the 50 or so new houses in Attleboro last year, how many were built to the stretch code?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because none of them had HERS raters who did it. So the only way we would know is if they gave us the initial paperwork showing the whole computer schedule of how that house was going to be built and furnished with accessories as far as their mechanicals and all that. Then at the end, we would get a complete package back from the HERS rater when the house is ready for occupancy, showing that it met all of those.
But because you haven't got that, it's safe to say that last year, no houses were built to the stretch code.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that that's probably a low number.
A very low number, yeah. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Delicio.
Thanks. Bill, thanks for coming down. Question, so the mass save that Mr. Conti was talking about, that's usually more on existing homes where the stretch code is more for for new homes, correct? So the mass save is existing, stretch code is for new.
Correct. And I think Mass Save may have something to do with them with the rebates and things like that.
But that
at
would
the
be the
beginning, but that's-
utility rebates you were talking about in this presentation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to say I was glad to hear you say that over the last several years since this was first in front of us that there have been a lot of efforts to close that gap, to get them closer. I think that this really kind of drives that point home. So thank you for the presentation and thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions for Mr. McDonough at this time?
Actually, I'll ask one question.
Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. So, are they making, I have a question. I am in support of this, but I do have a question. Are they making houses so tight that the fan has to be, what's going on?
Well, what happens is that depending on the way that the house is done and the size of the house and the number of bathrooms you have, the bathroom fans actually have settings inside the fan itself up in the ceiling that it'll go on a timer and it'll go on at certain times during the day. And that is so it can exchange air through the house because houses are being made that tight. Also, if your house is too large and you don't have enough bathrooms, that's not going to be enough for you, then there are house air exchangers that you actually put in as, it's like a ductwork system that will exchange your air. And you'll have to get 3 air changes an hour for the stretch code. So that there are. Yes, the answer is that it doesn't have to be on constantly, but it needs to be on more than not.
Okay. So would the state ever try to look to make some changes to make it better, or do you feel like that's the right direction? Because it kind of seems like. I'm not really
You mean
sure.
the tightness of the house?
Well, then you have the electric, I'm just kind of trying to figure out what the balance.
Well, the air exchanges, I'm sure that, we've had this discussion, I've been to countless seminars on things like this, and especially the old school building inspectors, they're all screaming at the guy from the Board of Health who's in favor of all this, who saying, hey, you're making them too tight, you're making sick houses, no one's going to be able to breathe. And they're like, listen, that's all it's wives' tales. It's not the case because of the way that these makeup air systems are used, and even just that, you'd be amazed at the air exchange that you get just from a bathroom fan. But like I said, the larger the house, the more air has to move. So the initiative is in the base code to do that. But in that instance, they're making these fans so that the betterment of the air exchange is worth the amount of energy expended to do so in the whole, because the tightness of the house is creating it as a much more efficient unit as well.
Okay, thank you.
If that makes sense.
Any other questions at this time? Thanks, Bill.
If can I just add one other
Absolutely.
thing? Just I know that when and if this gets voted, if it gets voted in, that's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But when it does get voted in, I do believe that the council does have the option of when this would take effect. So if that was typically in a case like this, if you voted tonight and it passed, then I would recommend a January 1st date. That's all. January 1st of 2020, just so that we can get ducks in a row.
Yeah.
And I'm not assuming anything, I just want to put that out there.
Great, thank you.
Then that wouldn't affect any house under construction.
No, it would be like any other code change that we would have. If any permits that are pulled prior to January 1st, if that's the date, would be would not have to adhere to that. So we could get a guy who pulls 5 permits on the last day of the year just because he wants. But it happens. It happened, and we had a big rush of that when we had that big energy change back in 12-13. We had guys who were scrambling to get them in first.
Well, you know, when people are building homes, you get down to the end, and
Yeah,
you're scratching for every dime you
Yeah,
got.
no, it wouldn't be in effect.
I wouldn't want to see somebody.
Even if
get
they
slapped
pulled a
over
permit and they still didn't put a shovel in the ground for 5 months, it would still be under the.
the old.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
Hi, Catherine Fierick, Economic Development Director. I just would like to add that we've been talking an awful lot on the supply side rather than the demand side here. This is the new homes that would be constructed under this stretch code would be a premium offering. The energy savings that the purchaser will get from this is actually something that increases the home's value. So keep that in mind. People who are looking for that kind of value and that kind of well-crafted home will be attracted to our community. I mean, I currently rent, and this is something that would attract me to a community if I could find housing stock of this kind. So it's just something to consider as the supply side, or the demand side as well.
Councilor Conti.
I have a question, because I don't follow your logic.
Sure.
If all the houses are more expensive, why is that more attractive?
Well, the savings per month and the maintenance costs are, at least in terms of perception, lower when you have a higher degree of craftsmanship that they're held to.
But you have a barrier to entry. You have a higher barrier to entry.
Yeah, but the property values will be higher for the homes, so we'll attract more premier resident class to them.
So this sounds like an elitist philosophy. Am I wrong?
Well, we usually try to increase property values in a city.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mike Davis. I live on Thayer Farm Road, Attleboro. And I'll thank you for holding the public hearing open and also holding it in the summer. As a former counselor, these are tough nights and on nice sunny days, so I appreciate it. I'm speaking in favor of this, strongly in favor, not even wavering one way or the other. And my end is my reasoning is probably different than several other people who I've chatted with. I've chatted with a few people on deck here. And Bill, you did a great job. You don't need to return my phone call. So, in any event, I'm looking at this purely from a strategic point of view. So as a counselor, I almost always, and I sat right there, as a counselor, I almost always broke decisions down into this is a tactical decision or this is a strategic decision. And sometimes they kind of blended. So a tactical one would be, someone's asking for a stop sign or a street light or whatever. And so you have the authority and responsibility to transfer those funds, and that's what your job is. Strategic ones are tougher to deal with. This is a strategic one. As Bill mentioned, Attleboro is now the last 22% of Commonwealth cities and towns to adopt this. Most recently, Norton and Rehoboth just passed this. And so I've gotten the opportunity to actually chat with several of the building inspectors around us that have adopted it and have not adopted it. So for the people who have not adopted it, I was very curious, why? Why would you not adopt this? And so, for example, East Bridgewater, which has not adopted this, he is a strong proponent of it and plans on bringing it up to the select people fairly soon. He had some suggestions of how he would execute it and implement it and administrate it and things like that, but well versed on why it is that this is the right thing to do. And frankly, I didn't speak to one building inspector, and I'm glad to hear Bill feeling the same way, that opposed this, or even remotely said that this was a burden to their organization or to the developers that they would talk with, because they're talking to the developers. So once it got adopted, developers want cash flow. totally understand that. I've owned my own business. I understand the idea of cash flow. You want to kind of get your money back as soon as you can. You don't want any impediments to that. You don't want anything slowing you down. So I get that. However, I look at this from a strategic point of view. This is the right thing to do. We should actually be in front of this, not in back of this. Climate issues, if you don't believe the numbers, I don't know what rock anybody is under. This is an important issue. We have to address it from a microcosmal point of view, from an individual point of view, from a house point of view, from a community point of view, and from a global point of view. It's not much of a stretch code anymore. As Bill mentioned, this thing has come very, very close. In fact, the gentleman from East Bridgewater said that several of the amendments are actually stronger than the stretch code. It was called stretch code back then because it truly was a stretch. Much less so now. So at the end of the day, and by the way, I can, several questions came up about the Mass Save thing. I'm such a proponent. I've had them come in 3 times. You can only have them come in every so often. There has to be a level of time that you have to adopt certain things, and then you get to invite them in. I've had him in 3 times over the past 5 years, and I have gotten all of my lights paid for free. I've got a smart thermostat in my house that cost me nothing. I got most of my new hybrid water heater paid for. So I ended up, my outlay was a couple of $1,000 in terms of insulation, in terms of the various things that they did. We did a lot of stuff. So being the financial person that I am, I have an Excel spreadsheet and I calculate each month, well, what did I get? I am so far ahead of the curve at this point, and that's what I would recommend that either that the resident who is an owner that's building the house, that they embrace Mass Save. It's amazing how many people don't take advantage of this. The developer can take advantage of this, by the way, so they can do it too. Now, it takes a little bit of paperwork. I'm an expert at it. I'd be happy to do consulting fees on how to do this. It's real easy, and you can get your money back, and it works. It really does. You got to get certain check marks. I get that, but it works. So the question you would have for me is, so what's been the result? There's the old, did you get your money back, or how you outlaid a certain amount? You know, how much did it didn't cost me that much. It was maybe $1,000 about numbers of things that I ended up doing. For 5 years, I have regularly made 30% back in my kilowatt hours. And I'm only doing kilowatt hours. I've got an oil-fired furnace, so I don't know what I've saved in terms of that, but it's going to be incrementally better if I tighten my house up a bit. So 30%. I have well paid for back everything, and I've gotten money in return. In fact, my return is better than some of my 401k stuff. So I would argue that this is something that we need to do from a tactical point of view, but even more importantly from a strategic point of view. Need to send that message. We need to start talking about this thing. We need to start doing things far more proactively than we are. In fact, I would say the stretch codes are not enough. We need to do even more. So, and the fact that the city could make grants and apply for grants, Easton just got they've made a tremendous amount of money on these grants. Yeah, it takes a little bit of administration. It takes some tactical. It takes some execution skill sets. We've got some great folks that know how to get grants in this city, and if we use it right, we can make money. That is aside from why it is I'm supporting this. Mine is strategic. This is the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Conti.
Councilor Davis.
No, not anymore.
Nice to see you back in chambers.
Well, it's interesting on this side.
I used to watch you on television and enjoyed your terms on the council.
Thanks.
We've talked on the phone.
Yes.
Are you planning on buying a new home?
No.
And I'd like to also add to your comments that Mass Save is 1-800-MASS-SAVE is how you get the whole program started. I too, like you, have taken advantage of Mass Save only once, but it gave me a 7-year interest-free loan on the new 95% gas boiler in my home, which is almost paid off, and a water heater that's associated with it. A fabulous program, and I believe that the general population is 13,000 single and two-family homes in the city of Attleboro. If they all called Mass Save, they would have a far greater impact on our ecology than just the stretch code, because there's far more of them that are existing housing stock. So thank you for coming in. We'll call you Councilor Davis, once a councilor, always a councilor. And thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And can you imagine if you did the stretch code and you did Mass Save?
Any other questions? Oh, Council Jackson, I'm sorry.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Kate.
It was great to hear you again today.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here.
It's funny because when Mr. McDonough had gotten up to speak, and as soon as he started speaking, I'm like, I just heard all this already.
It was amazing just how much we echoed.
It really was
We did not talk.
I know, it really was amazing. Thank you so much for coming in this evening and sharing what you have done with your own home. And I knew that as soon as you asked him a question if he's going to buy a new house, it's like, are you out of your mind?
I just finally got it there.
Yeah, I know. You sound like you're super happy with everything that's happened and has done. And we appreciate you being with us this evening and sharing all of your experiences so far. So thanks.
You're welcome. That's it.
Yep. And nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. For the record, my name is Peter Clark. I'm a resident of 97 Brownell Street. I have been a real estate broker since 1987. I've been a licensed CS, a construction supervisor, since 1989. I've been an attorney since 1999. So, and my law practice has a good, heavy practice area in real estate. So I see a large number of folks buying and selling homes. I do a lot of construction loan financing for banks. I see the blueprints and plans that people are doing. But I rise and speak against the stretch code for several reasons tonight, members. And so, what I'd like to do is try and address some of the points that I've heard the proponents speak. So, first of all, Councilor Davis is right. This is a strategic decision that the council needs to make. And that strategy should be based upon what is this going to do for the city of Attleboro. So we heard the economic development director say that this is, maybe going to, bring, a premium level of housing to the city that doesn't exist. I would disagree with that statement. It will bring more expensive housing to the city, but not a premium level of housing. The numbers that I believe that the building inspector handed out that were published by the Energy Group are, I guess, a spin in the worst way. They are no way near accurate. So, as a construction supervisor, I'm not one of the big builders here in the city. I kind of do it as a hobby. Since 2004, I have built 8 houses or duplex units here in Attleboro. So I have a good idea of costs. I'm not like a Bill Ward or that kind of thing, but I have a pretty good idea of construction costs. The foam insulation that's going to be that is going to really be mandated by the stretch code. It's going to be almost the only way to get the energy ratings that we need to get. Averages 3 to 4 times the cost of fiberglass for insulation. There is an issue of houses being too tight. The number of houses, house sales, I don't know Rick, if how many transactions has your wife been involved in where mold has been discovered, and they've had to spend a fairly good amount of money for mold remediation because the houses are too tight. The houses don't breathe, and you need an air exchanger system, and the duct work associated with that is thousands of dollars, not $2,600. The cost on that sheet that I believe he handed out might have been like a net number in the sense of what the additional cost would be after years and years of payback. But what is it going to cost somebody that wants to come to Attleboro and buy a house here? For the builder, well, let's say it's probably going to cost $7,000-8,000 or more for the insulation. I just did a renovation project for clients in Norton, and the foam insulation bill alone for an addition was $18,000. Okay, the cost for an air exchanger, the additional cost of electricity for having that fan running constantly. This house in Norton that I just did, because it was in a crawl space, had to have a fan blowing through constantly for air exchange. That adds to the electric bill, the kilowatt hours. The costs of this are just not worthwhile. Now let's talk about the code itself, because I just had the fun joy this past beautiful weather weekend of spending 12 hours of continuing education for my construction supervisor's license. So I got to learn all about the new changes in the code that are coming down the pike, just this fresh in my mind this past weekend. So, I don't know how many of you saw the TV story not too many weeks ago that California is now making solar mandatory. Well, Massachusetts is just one step behind California. The new code, the new energy code, the new regular energy code that's coming out.
Point of order, this has to do with the stretch code?
It does,
So,
but
it's not up to you to argue. I know what you do in your full-time job, but it's up to me to decide whether.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Thank you. Council Holmes, what is your point?
Well, we're talking about the stretch code, not California's regulations.
I agree. So, Peter, if you don't mind, stick right to.
Okay, so all right. I was using California as an example, Mr. President, but what it is, Council Holmes, is in terms of the additional cost, the new code requires already a conduit from the attic to the basement for future solar electrical lines. It requires additional costs because you need to make the roof structure stronger here, starting in the new code, to support the weight of solar panels. So mandatory solar is, coming soon. So I want you to be aware, members of the council, that these are costs that the residents of the city of Attleboro who want to build a new house are going to face. The talk about mass save, that's primarily for those with existing homes. The stretch code is new homes or large scale additions. It is not people that have existing homes. The additional energy costs coming in the new code. If you want to put a garage addition on, you're going to have an outlet for an electric car charger, even if you don't have an electric car. For a lot of people, that's going to require, a 50 amp breaker and an upgrade of their electric service to support that. These costs are just, okay, I got less than $20 in my wallet right now, guys. People that want to come here, they're not all people that can afford $600,000 houses. Look at the people talking on Facebook that they would like to have an affordable house to live. My girlfriend's trying to buy a house now. She's looking at a bank foreclosure on Perrin Street. That you can't afford houses here. Don't add to the cost, ladies and gentlemen. I would urge you to vote down the adoption of the stretch code. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question for you, Peter. You said you built some duplexes in Attleboro. Have you built anything in a municipality that does have the stretch code?
I have.
And what was your direct financial impact in those that you built in those other municipalities?
I've done 2 in stretch code communities, Mr. President. On the single family, which was a just slightly under 3,000 square foot house, it added, I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers, but I would say it's somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 in additional costs by the between the high efficiency water heater, the higher efficiency furnace, the foam insulation, the air exchanger. That was a Newton property. The duplex that I did, I can't really I don't have numbers.
If you don't mind just shooting an email to the council.
Sure.
You know, just to sort of get that perspective, I think would be great. Just from Council Jackson.
Thank you, and hi. So that new home that you built, but they probably had rebates on all those appliances, correct? So they got money back.
Well, maybe Councilor Jackson, but no, those rebates, didn't come to me as a builder, so I had to, charge those people that additional amount to buy the house, which means that they paid more, they had to finance more, so their mortgage payment is higher over 30 years, and the interest adds up over time. So maybe they got some rebates back, I don't know. But again, if what we're talking about is entry house, what Attleboro needs, Councilor Jackson, at least in my opinion, is not more $600,000 houses. I live in a duplex, a condo that I built over on Brownell Street. I can't afford a $600,000 single family house. No, if you look at a lot of these houses that are being built in the city, you're pricing residents out. And when single families go up, the taxes go up, the rental rates go up. You're actually, with all due respect to the economic development director, you're not attracting people to the city. You're driving people away.
And there's also not much land left to build new houses either, correct?
That's actually correct, Councilor Jackson. I served on the master plan committee that the city had, back before Mayor Dumas. And at that point they did and this was 15 years ago, 20 years ago almost, and they looked at the amount of land that was buildable in the city. You're right, land is scarce, and land is a driving factor. There was just a study done that Massachusetts needs 150,000 new units of housing statewide before 2030. We should be looking to create affordable housing, family housing, not driving people away, Councilor Jackson.
Any other, Councilor Dolan?
So on the house that you built, when Councilor Jackson was talking about the rebates, so you as the construction person received 0 rebates on anything you did to honor that stretch code in Newton?
That's correct.
Were there any available to you, or did you just not apply for them?
So that house was 3 years ago, Councilor Dolan. I'm not sure. No, so I believe what the building inspector was talking about is, you can hire a HERS rater that will help you apply. You spend $1,000. He said $500. It's actually $1,000 to hire a HERS rater, and the HERS rater helps you to comply with the stretch code and design, qualify you for rebates and that type of thing. I'm not aware, and I know I did not get any rebate money.
On the foam, so you're saying that the stretch code requires foam insulation? Because I'm not aware of that requires foam insulation. That's $15,000.
Well, Councilor Dolan, it doesn't require foam insulation per se, but the only, if you're dealing with a 2x6 thick wall, and you need to get certain ratings, energy ratings, in order to the number of points, you have to have the more efficient glass, you have to have the thicker insulation, you have to have all of these things. The most efficient way of getting,
but not required.
You have to have the higher R rating, and so the way to get the higher R rating in a 2x6 wall is with the foam insulation, which is a lot more expensive.
And so, can you just elaborate on what you had said? I'm sorry, I didn't get the whole thing. You said something about a fan in the attic. What was that? And you said about the fan running.
Yeah, in order to, because these houses are so super insulated, they're so super tight, you have to have a way of exchanging the air so that you don't get stale air, so that you try and minimize mold.
Is it like an attic fan? Is that what you're talking about?
It's actually like it's the bathroom fan. But instead of where in your house you can probably flip off the switch on your bathroom fan, on the new fans they actually have a humidistat built into them,
as needed.
And they actually have to run probably. Would you say, Mike? Is it at least 12 hours a day? Is that a fit?
Depends on how many bathrooms.
Yeah. So usually that fan has to be going constantly, or a good part of each and every day, to create the air exchange. Or as I say, in a large house, in a large colonial, you actually have to have a system where you have an air intake coming from outside that goes in, that circulates through your HVAC, filters the stale air out, pushes the stale air out, and as I say, that costs $2,500. Again, the numbers on that chart that were submitted by the building inspector, building commissioner, with all due respect, I don't think are accurate.
Do you have any numbers that you could submit to us?
I really don't, Council Dolan, only because what I have is my QuickBooks, which is my cost of construction, and that doesn't give a breakdown. But if I compare what the cost would be for a house with R20 fiberglass versus now having to do a higher R factor that's foam, again, it's 3 to 4 times the cost, Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Clark? Thank you.
Thank you, members
Peter,
of the council.
thank
Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone here neither for nor against? Anyone here neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor Holmes, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. This public hearing is also closed this evening. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of the next
Yes,
public
the
hearing?
next public hearing is relative to the proposed amendment to the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro, Section 3 buildings as it pertains to vacant buildings.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Hello again, Catherine Feerick, Economic Development Director. I'd just like to provide a little bit of context. The vacancy ordinance was actually something that I discussed with the city during my job interview. That's how long this has been in the process. It's taken me a while to understand the market conditions of Attleboro and to work with my various department heads to talk to local property owners to really see what kind of model would work here. We do have an existing vacancy ordinance. However, it does not delineate commercial properties or residences. That's caused us a little bit of difficulty in actually enforcing things like our broken windows policy and other areas where there's visible neglect of buildings. So what the commercial property, vacant property ordinance does, it separates out so that first and foremost, you report to me when you have a vacant property. I take down information like square footage, any features like loading docks or anything else like that. This is information that I can collect, and I can actually form a database with that information to help matchmake. When people call me looking for sites, I'll actually know exactly what there is available within our property. Number two, like I say, it allows us to make sure that our properties within the city are well kept, well maintained, and that if they are vacant, that we're keeping them in good enough condition that a subsequent buyer will want them. So there were really minor tweaks that we made to the existing ordinance. The major structural change was really that we divided it into a residential ordinance and a commercial property ordinance. I did receive some feedback from a local attorney, which I forwarded to the ordinance committee. I thought that after conferring with our building inspector, with our own solicitor, the mayor, we all thought that the changes that he suggested were excellent, so we just sent them down as is. So this has been vetted by a couple of people in the field as well. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think that it'll help us greatly to really make sure that Attleboro has a great face in the future.
Thank you. Any questions for Catherine?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Anyone here neither for nor against? Seeing none. This is also in, Council Holmes, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. That public hearing is also closed. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of the next
The next public hearing is relative to the petition from National Grid requesting permission to install a new pole and anchor, or pole number 2, for a new home at 11 Calvin Street.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Matt Eustace with National Grid. We would look to get your approval to install a utility pole to provide service to a new home that's being constructed, on Calvin Street, at the end of Calvin Street.
Questions for the gentleman? Yes.
His last name, please.
What was your last name? sir?
Eustace.
Spell-
Eustace.
Spell it for us.
EUSTIS.
Just what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Council Jackson, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not, President
Thank you.
Cooper.
This public hearing is also closed. Would you read the notice of the next public hearing, please?
Yes, the next public hearing is relative to a petition from National Grid requesting permission to install a pole and anchor located 75 feet north of existing pole 3325 on Rathbone Drive for the sewer pump station at the new Attleboro High School.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Matt Eustace with National Grid again. Just like was read, we would like to ask for permission to install a new utility pole to provide service for the pump station for the new high school.
Excellent. Any questions for the gentleman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Council Jackson, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not, Mr. President,
Excellent.
thank you.
That public hearing is also closed. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the
Yes, the
notice
next
for
one is a public hearing relative to the application from New England Authentic Eats LLC, DBA Papagino's at 103 Pleasant Street.
Excellent. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? I did see them here, and I told them that I didn't, I asked Heather to let them know that I didn't think it was necessary for them to come give us testimony for these two applications, given we've done this for as long as they've been in business. So there's one on Pleasant Street, there's another one coming up. And this is in the license committee, I believe. Who's the second?
I am.
Do you see any reason to keep this public
I do
hearing
not.
open? Perfect. This public hearing is also closed. Would you read the notice of the next public
The
hearing?
next public hearing is relative to the application from New England Authentic Eats LLC, doing business as Papagino's at 283 Washington Street.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Again, my comments are the same for both of these. Council Dolan, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
This public hearing is also closed. Would you kindly read the notice of the next public hearing?
Yes, and it is the final one of the evening. It's a public hearing relative to the Class 2 application from Wathek Obaid of 196 Commonwealth Ave, North Attleboro for Automaze 2, Inc. at 826 Washington Street with 11 customer parking spaces and 34 display spaces.
Excellent. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Wathek Obaid. I'm applying for a used car license at a second location for me in Attleboro.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Council Conti?
So Waleed, where is your first location?
It's also on Washington Street and it's at 8085 Washington.
And what's the name of that business?
Automazed.
Automaze.
Correct.
Thank you. How long have you been doing business there?
At the current location, it's been since 2015.
2015.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions? Council Dolan?
So he wants to take over where Looney Tuned was, right?
I'm sorry?
That's the location where Looney Tuned was.
Correct.
Right, okay. So he submitted the same plot plan and everything. And you're going by exactly what the same plot plan was before?
Correct.
So just to, I thought that it was required to, with a change in ownership for new plans.
No, I talked to Bill McDonough, and he said that that's fine.
He presented plans, Bill approved them, and Bill said it was fine. He was fine with him. He didn't have to, since it was gonna be this, the plot plan was going to be the same.
Okay.
Exact
Fair enough,
thing.
fair enough, okay.
But
That's why we did that.
But what my friend Wally's gonna do is discuss, right, because we're good friends now?
Absolutely.
You're gonna go down and see the building inspector regarding your storage.
Correct. On my first location, actually, I do have two entities in there. One of them is a car dealer, the other one is a repair shop, and they are totally separate
Right, we don't need to,
entities.
yeah.
So the vehicles that are on the back are being repaired. They're not offered for sale. The ones are offered for sale is only the ones in the front of the property. And as you know, I knocked down the building over there, so I have enough space to put the 33 cars that I'm allowed to.
And I'm sure if you're approved for Looney Tune, the old location, everything's gonna go super smooth, right?
I'm hoping, yes.
Me too.
So let me just say this, it really has to, if there's any outstanding violations at your existing business, I struggle with adding to that. We sort of have a new fresh air and sunlight, as Council Conti would say, on the used car dealers in the city of Attleboro, thanks to Council Dolan's work around making sure that what you put before this honorable body is what you do. And she watches that, and she calls me frequently about certain, in particular, dealerships and sort of how to proceed, whether it's engaging the building inspector, or, going down there and, I know that you have met her, about your other business. So please just know that, and because you've had experience with, Councilor Dolan being, super, on top of making sure that what you say you're gonna do, you do, and nothing more. You can always have less cars, but don't have any more than, and if you need more and you have the space, come ask us, tell us that's what you wanna do. Because as soon as she goes to a dealer, that dealer's quick to point out, well, look across the street at that guy, and look at that guy, and what about the guy down the street? It's sort of instead of worrying about himself or herself. So I appreciate your work. I know that you've been responsive to Councilor Dolan, and we all appreciate that, but I just wanna sort of let you know that if there's violations where you're at, fix them and quick. Because I'm gonna go, you'll see me there.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes,
Thank
I've
you.
met with Councilor Dolan several times, and we discussed the situation also several times, and actually, I believe I moved way above and beyond to
Great.
be in compliance with what she asked me to do.
And she has told me that. I just, sort of everybody that's coming before us, I wanna give the same sort of lines to around. This is sort of we're holding the line on what your permit says.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Councilor Dolan, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Great, that public hearing is also closed. And I think that's all of them, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
We did it, excellent. I gotta go back a couple of pages. So at this time, we'll, let me finish before we second, but I'll entertain a motion for recess. We'll go into recess for the purposes of committee meetings, and then we'll come back and vote anything that we need to, and go through the rest of tonight's agenda. Any questions about that? At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into recess.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are recessed at 9:09.
I'd like to call the Public Works Committee to order at 9:09, please. I have one motion this evening in my committee
Oh, never mind, Jane.
From the docket of June 25th, 2019, I entertain a motion to strike the following item from the docket. I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $6,000 from account 6100-553130, Water Enterprise Fund Chemicals, to account 6100-530101, Water Enterprise Fund Professional Services, to pay for security cameras for the water pumping station and the water treatment plant.
Second.
Thank you. Well, it wasn't a pleasant conversation that we had had a couple weeks ago, and I hope that what took place on this floor amongst us counselors, it never happens again to any one of us again. We all know this is a moot point at this point with the cameras, and we all received a memo from from Deb, our city auditor, and I'd like to read the memo just for the public's knowledge to understand what's going on. This memo is a follow-up to the meetings that we have had related to the request of funding of the Water Department for security cameras. It is the recommendation of the Office of the City Auditor that this matter be stricken from the docket of June 25th, 2019. The Water Department was advised that work without purchase orders is not acceptable. Please see the attached memorandum. The value of the work completed in fiscal year 2019 was for 2 separate installations. The installation associated with Luther on Todd Street was $271.98. No purchase order was required for this work. Payment was processed for this work on July 15th, 2019, at the last minute as a part of the city's final warrant for fiscal year 2019. In addition, the final fiscal 2019 warrant included payment for the work completed in fiscal 2019 for the installation of security cameras at the treatment plant on West Street. This work did require a purchase order, and the department was advised as to the proper process for authorizing and paying for the work. The value of this installation was $1,093.37. To be clear, to my knowledge, it is not usual or customary for a vendor to proceed with work without the permission of the department. If the accounting auditing department is made aware that a department fails to be in compliance with obtaining a purchase order prior to work being performed, the department is told it is unacceptable. In most cases, this is discovered when a department notifies the accounting department that a mistake was made and assistance is being sought in how to remedy the matter. The initial funding request included work that potentially will be contracted for performance in fiscal year 2020 as no action is needed by the Honorable Municipal Council. That is from our city auditor. And just to be clear, this does not happen all the time. It has happened. It does not happen on a regular basis. This is something that happened. Unfortunately, everything was not on the up and up. As far as I'm concerned, it still wasn't. I know I said it's a moot point, but I am still very angry about how this whole situation played out in the public eye and in front of this council, to be quite clear. With that, if anybody has any questions or anything to say, please just come forward right now. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I have no further business this evening for the Public Works Committee, but would like to call for a committee meeting. This week. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we would like to entertain a motion for adjourn at 9:13.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:13.
The Personnel and Human Services Committee does not have any business tonight. We will meet next at the most appropriate time.
I'd like to call the Capital Improvement City Development Committee to order at 9:13. Sitting on this committee is Councilor Dolan as the Vice Chair and Councilor Waterman. I have 2 motions to bring before you this evening. I entertain a motion from the docket of June 4th, 2019. I entertain a motion to strike the following item from the docket. A communication from the Planning Board, Chairman Paul Denisi, dated May 14th, 2019, regarding the support to purchase a Vector truck for the DPW identified as an urgent in need of CPI for 10+ years.
Second.
I believe that we vetted our resolution for the mayor quite well as a committee and as a council. I appreciate Mr. Denise's concerns for the vac truck. I confirm that it has been on our capital improvement plan for 10+ years. The price of it has risen from $300,000 to nearly $900,000 during that period of time. And it was impossible for us to find money to buy it then. It's impossible for us to find money to buy it now. And you both sat in with me when we had a meeting with the mayor, and you know exactly what he felt about our proposal to him on the capital improvements message. So, given that, I think it's the right thing to strike this from the record. That concludes my comments. Any other discussion? Calls for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. From the docket, June 4, 2019, I entertain a motion to strike the following item from the docket. A communication from Planning Board Chairman Paul Denisi dated May 14, 2019 regarding the purchase of a plotter scanner for the Department of Planning to replace an outdated large-scale plotter.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. I have nothing further to say on this item, other than I believe it's time to strike it. Any comments? Motion's in order, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I just want to make one more comment to you, because I can't talk to you other than here. I watched the Municipal Building Commission, of which you appeared, and thank you for being there on July 2nd. I wanted to be there and could not. I appreciated your comments to the Building Commission that the library needs a roof and needs windows.
Yeah.
And that all of the discussion about the feasibility studies and the further feasibility studies that's coming with the $26,000 they have left over is a distraction from the fact that we need a roof and we need windows. And so I appreciate you for making that point at the Municipal Building Commission, and I believe that they heard it.
I certainly hope so.
I had many comments to say, which were reflected in your memo to the Municipal Building Commission, and I appreciate you participating in the activities of the Municipal Building Commission. I would encourage all councilors to be a little bit more involved in what's going on with the Municipal Building Commission and the School Building Commission, because they are becoming a very active body. And there's some really big issues that are coming up in front of the council in the coming term. I was going to do the same thing as you, and I spoke to one of the building commissioners about my attitude about that plan that was done by Alex Cohen, which I was not happy with. And the building commission at the end of their meeting came to the same conclusion of what I was going to recommend, is that a further study that would look at the renovation of the library in phases or stages or in various levels of completion, as opposed to a new building, would be much more in order. And I was sorry that that wasn't the directive that was given to the architect the first time, because it would have probably been more effective use of our money. So please continue to monitor what's going on with the School Building Commission and the Municipal Building Commission. That will save me from doing recaps in our capital improvement meetings. And this is the only time we can get to talk about it, so if you have any comments about the library, now's the time to air them.
I would only say that as I go around the city talking to people and campaign, that every single person I've talked to, and a lot of people are concerned about this issue, would like to remain in the same property that they're in now. The details of how they want to go about fixing it vary, but to stay there is constant.
Good to know. Anything else from anyone else? Seeing none, motion to adjourn is in order. I make a motion we adjourn at 9:19.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. I declare the Capital Improvement and City Development meeting adjourned at 9:19. Thank you.
Zoning and land use is canceled for tonight.
Transportation and traffic is canceled for tonight.
Budget and appropriations is canceled for tonight.
I guess that's me.
Like that.
Just like that, everybody. I'd like to call License Committee to order at 9:19. I have two motions this evening from the docket of July 17, 2018. I entertain a motion to strike the following from the docket. Communication dated July 12, 2018 from zoning enforcement officer William McDonough regarding a violation of unregistered vehicles at 11 Horton Avenue.
Second.
I'm just striking these because everything's been taken care of. Does anybody have any questions? Everything's been addressed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The second one I have is from the docket of February 19, 2019. I entertain a motion to strike the following from the docket of communication dated January 29, 2019 with a complaint from August 18, 2018 against Old School Auto Sales, 187 Cumberland Ave, Attleboro.
Second.
This again has been addressed, and I'd just like to add, Old School, well, so far, is one of my success stories. That's all I have to say. Does anybody have any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 9:21.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
City Property and Claims Committee is canceled.
Reporting from, or calling to order, ordinance election legislative matters committee at 9:21. I have one motion this evening. From the docket of May 21st, 2019, I entertain a motion to adopt the Board of Building Regulations and Standards Stretch Code 780 CMR 115.AA, which is an appendix to the Massachusetts State Building Code, and request the following amendments. Amend Section 3, Building of Revised Ordinance of the City of Attleboro as amended by inserting the following new section as follows. Section 3-13, Stretch Code Energy. Section 3-13.1, Definitions. International Energy Conservation Code. The International Energy Conservation Code is a building energy code created by the International Code Council. It is a model of code for the establishment of minimum design and construction requirements for the energy efficiency and is updated from time to time. Stretch Energy Code, codified by the Board of Building Regulations and Standards as 780 CMR Appendix 115.AA of the 9th edition Massachusetts State Building Code as amended. The Stretch Energy Code is an appendix to the Massachusetts State Building Code based on further amendments to the International Energy Conservation Code to improve the energy efficiency of buildings built to this code. Section 3-13.2, the purpose. The purpose of 780 CMR 115.AA is to provide more energy efficient alternative to the base energy code applicable to the relevant section of the building code for new buildings. Section 3-13.3, Stretch Code adopted. The Stretch Code applies to residential and commercial buildings. Buildings not included in this scope shall comply with 780 CMR 133451 as applicable. The Stretch Code, as codified by the Board of Building Regulations and Standards as 780 CMR Appendix 115.AA, include any future additions, amendments, or modifications, is herein incorporated by reference into the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro as amended. The Stretch Code is enforceable by the Inspector of Building or Building Commissioner.
Second.
Thank you. Well, we had the public hearing open for quite some time, and we've heard from a lot of individuals that are in favor of this, and there were a few people who were not in favor. I do support this and would like to see it move forward. The train is moving, and this kind of can have a bigger impact in the city in terms of what the future could look like. And I think it is a protection from homeowners where they're gonna get a house that's built to a certain energy code, and I appreciate that. So, any other comments from my committee members?
Council Holmes, I'd like to, once we speak to Mr. McDonough with regards to, he had said he'd like to put a date on this, so maybe offer up a friendly amendment that it begins at a certain time and date, so at the next meeting?
I am open to doing that at the next meeting, and I wanted to talk about that. I am somewhat open to that. The only concern I have, I'm going to connect with the administration and just kind of, because I want to ask about is that gonna impact our ability to potentially move forward with getting any grants for that cycle? Because it's in November that we would have to have this either approved or not, so I don't know if we can say, if we can push the date off, but it is adopted. So I'm just gonna ask a little bit, but I can get clarification, does that make sense?
Yeah, that would be great, because I would like to also know, like, something recently just happened this week where a ordinance was implemented by a department head out of nowhere. And another department already had contracts in place, and it's just not meshing. So I just want to be sure that this isn't going to interfere with people who have already pulled their permits and have gotten all their okay with their zoning and the planning board, and they're ready to build a new house, and, you know, just be sure that that's not going to affect them.
Okay, I will get
Yeah,
some
thank
clarification.
you.
I'm completely comfortable with that. Any other comments? Did you guys have?
I think I asked Bill that tonight, Kate. I
Oh,
don't know if you caught it or not.
I guess I didn't.
That's what I said, and he said that it wouldn't affect anybody that's applied for a permit. If the stretch code went through, they would be under the old building.
Grandfather types?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Even if they didn't act on it for 6 months. He said, as long as they've got their building permit, they're not liable for that stretch code.
I think that Mr. McDonough's recommendation for the January 1st start date is a solid one for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, some permits are in process, some are coming, some people, we know they're coming. And oftentimes, like when there's a change in ordinance for adding a street sign or things like that, there's a 30-day hold period on that anyway for us to be able to catch up and get that into the ordinance books, I just said that weird, ordinance book. And I think that to get all of the builders here in the city all on the same page, make the corrections, and in our ordinance book, I think that's probably a smart. I was thinking the same thing along those lines. Do we miss the first round? But the ability for who this will actually practically impact, we need to be courteous to them as well as we move forward. So.
I'm looking around, going to say any other questions, but it's not up to me, it's up to council.
Any other?
I'm sorry that I missed the beginning of this conversation. Are we talking about the ordinance for vacant properties?
No, stretch code.
The stretch code, okay. I gotta tell you, I meant what I said to Catherine, that it's a barrier, it's an additional barrier to a first-time home buyer to a new house. And I do think that it's not these numbers that Bill gave us from the DOER. I understand the DOER is on an agenda to get everybody in Massachusetts on the stretch code. They're gonna produce numbers that are favorable to their issue. So don't put a lot of faith in the numbers that Bill gave us because they're from the DOER. I think the testimony of Mr. Clark, Attorney Clark, is more telling. Someone who's actually in the construction industry. I, as an assessor, am not in the industry, and I went to see Bill to ask him. He's got 56 building permits currently open for single-family homes, and we don't think that one of them is a stretch code building. My feeling about the stretch code is that if it was to be in Attleboro, it would be coming to Attleboro because everybody building a new house wanted the stretch code. That's not the case. Almost nobody building a new house in Attleboro is demanding the stretch code. So the market is not asking for the stretch code. The people of Attleboro are not asking for the stretch code, except for the people that are on a political agenda for a green earth. I got that. I mean, it's a serious issue. Climate change, etc. The whole green thing, that's another subject. They're not buying new homes. That's why I asked Councilor Davis if he planned to buy a new home. He's not planning on buying a new home, so he's not affected by the stretch code. So he's a big proponent for the stretch code because it doesn't affect him. As a real estate broker, as a realtor, as an assessor, as an appraiser, and as a city councilor, I have an issue with state mandates that force a particular part of the population to bear a burden where it's not borne evenly. And I voted for the bag ban because I felt that was not a big impact on the population of Attleboro. But the stretch code is a big impact on the very special small portion of people that are buying a new home in the city of Attleboro. And I think it's a detriment. And I can't support the stretch code because it's not market driven. If the people who call me say, Richard, I want you to vote for the stretch code because it's better for Earth, my answer is, are you planning on buying a new house? And unanimously it's no. It doesn't affect them. So they want everyone else to be affected, but not them on the stretch code. I can't explain why 200 communities have gone for it, other than I think that they're going for the green initiative and they're going for that grant money. You know, that carrot is a big carrot for a lot of motivation for small towns. And notice Western Massachusetts jumped right in on it because they don't have as much money as the eastern portion of the state. And it's really hard to separate the stretch code from the Green Community Initiative, but you got to do that on this vote. You've got to separate the stretch code from the Green Initiative, given that if we don't adopt the stretch code, we can't have the Green Initiative. I got that. I think that Attleboro adopting the stretch code would be a very bad step. And I think that it would put the issue is so complex because these 56 people that have an open building permit right now in the city of Attleboro are all going to be paying $600,000 to $750,000 for their houses. These 56 people have not asked for the stretch code. These 56 people are not going to be affected by the stretch code whether we pass it or not. And the impact on our environment, on those 56 houses and all future houses that are being built brand new, have absolutely nothing in comparison with all the existing housing stock that could be improved through Mass Save. So I don't see the urgent need for the stretch code when I do see the urgent need for everybody who has an existing house in Attleboro to pick up the phone and call 1-800 Mass Save and improve the efficiency of their home to reduce their electric usage to save our planet. I feel that this is a state-mandated penalty on new home buyers who are going to be paying for it over a 30-year mortgage. And I can't support it. And it's not because I'm against the Green Initiative. It's not because I'm against saving energy. It's not because I don't care about climate change. It's because I think that the stretch code is the wrong way to get Attleboro to be more energy efficient, more energy wise, and less environmentally harmful. I don't think the stretch code is the way to do that. If the stretch code was to be the lay of the land, it would be law, and it's not. It's not law. So, I guess in conclusion, remember, I'm an assessor. Think about where I come from. Everything is market-driven in assessing. The value of a house is market-driven. Your taxes are market-driven. everything I do is market driven. It's really, really hard for me to leave that theory, methodology, and analysis and go to a state mandate. I wish Frank Cook was here. And that concludes my comments. Thank you for letting me get my say.
So I plan on supporting this, and, Bill said he doesn't know how many of those 56 houses are building to the stretch code. So he doesn't know, you don't know, we don't know, nobody knows. We had Bill Ward that came here and said that he always builds to the stretch code.
No.
Whoa,
That's not what Bill
whoa,
said.
whoa.
Well, all right, always builds
No.
something to, what did he say? The one was.
He builds a premium home. He does not build a stretch cone.
All right,
home.
well, I'll take that back and I'll go back and look at the tape, so I'll take that back. So Bill says he doesn't know how many of those homes. And I also think that too, people don't know they had the option, because if nobody's asking for it, doesn't mean it's not market driven. Because you said as an assessor, taxes, everything is market driven. And, all right, I'm not gonna say that comment. And I disagree when you say it's a political agenda. I mean, you're talking about something that's mandated. Everything in the code's mandated, just like Bill said. He said it's just a matter of time before it is mandated. First time, and when you talk about first-time home buyers, I don't know what first-time home buyer is buying a brand-new spanking house. There are some, I'm sure, but I would assume it's few and far between. Because I know the first house I bought was built in 1964, because that's what I could afford. And as far as like punishing people, I don't agree with that statement that we're punishing people when we're trying to do a good thing for the community and the environment and, Attleboro as a whole. And then you talked about Mr. Davis saying he doesn't, it doesn't affect him. Well, I care about a million things that don't affect me, that have nothing to do with me. I care about, people that can't afford certain things that I can afford, but I still care about it. I care about people all over that maybe don't have the life that I have, but which doesn't affect me, but I still care, and it still matters, and it still matters to a community. So I don't think of it as a punishment, and I don't think that because it doesn't affect you, that's the only reason that you care about it. Is that why you want it? That concludes my comments.
Councilor Holmes, can I respond to Councilor Dolan?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Councilor Dolan, the punishment is the barrier to entry, the barrier to buy that new house, because in Attleboro it has to be stretch code, and in Taunton it's not. So a new home buyer thinking, do I want to buy a house? Do I want to buy a new house in Attleboro? Do I want to buy a new house in North Attleboro or Taunton? North Attleboro and Taunton don't have the stretch code, but Attleboro does. It's a
new construction.
It's a city council mandate that the new construction has to have the stretch code. Then the punishment is that barrier to entry to buy the new house in Attleboro. You follow me?
I follow you. I just don't agree with it.
Okay, so it is. You understand why I'm saying it's a punishment?
Of course I do.
Okay, thank
I
you.
understand.
Thank you, Councilor Holmes.
Okay, President Cooper?
So, Council Conti,
Don't forget the record.
what figures do you think are real, right? Because you said you don't agree with this. We've heard other people say, oh, no, that's not true. So I just recently built, as all of you know, a house in Maine. And it is airtight. And I put a $1,200, cost me real, I'll bring the invoices if you want to see it, air exchanger that exchanges in a 964 square foot house the entire first floor. It runs all the time. My house in Maine is 100% electric. 100%.
Wow.
I then, because I didn't like the smell in the basement, put one in for $800 in the basement. And it takes exactly as Attorney Clark described. It takes a certain volume of outside air, runs it through 3 filters, and then takes the yucky air from inside and blows it out. So that's real. I also happen to have 2 50-amp plugs on both of my houses. The one in Maine, so I can plug in, and my one on West Street, so I can plug in. And you all know what I'm plugging in, right? So it didn't cost me a ton of money to add that on when I was building my house, who happened to be built by Bill Ward. They ran the cord through for 50-amp plug. The wire's about that big, and the receiver's on the outside, so I can plug in. My electric bill in Maine for that house in the peak of the summer is about $125-ish, $130, because it's super wicked efficient. And it's circulating air all the time. So those are real numbers. My electric bill in the wintertime is low, because I keep, if there's nobody in it, I keep the heat low and I can control it, and it's super high efficient. It's the heat pump. So there, what is the number that would sort of make you think, oh, it's sort of worth doing that? And for me, it was, if the electricity goes, so where, for me, my sort of, I had to think of, okay, this is Maine, this is a fully electric house, the power goes out a lot. So for me, the investment was the generator that's outside, that's hooked to propane, that'll run the whole house if and when the power goes out, and I get a text that when that's happened. So there are there are things that are sort of a conscious effort or a conscious decision to say, what am I going to do? What do I need to sort of keep this place safe and energy efficient and all the things I want it to be? But also, what's the real impact? What does this cost the builder? Nobody can answer that. Peter Clark says $20,000 for insulation in Norton. And the building inspector's sitting right down in front of me shaking his head. You don't have to do foam insulation. You don't have to put the certain things. So I'm in conflict with sort of some of the testimony, which I think you articulated through your concern about what was provided for information, but I still don't have a handle on what is the impact. Because if you use foam blown in insulation, you had to use something before that. So there's a delta. I don't know if what he reported is $20,000 is the delta. He didn't say that. He said it's $20,000 for insulation. So it's just really, I'm sort of feeling your apprehension around what does this cost, because nobody could tell us what it costs. Everybody that came up that got asked that question, nobody could answer that. But I do agree with Councilor Dolan in that most of those $650-ish thousand homes, and they probably range, from, I watch it all the time, as you know, and they probably range from, when they first went into some of these subdivisions, the sort of low to mid 4s, and have over time creeped up to this price sort of at the beginning of the subdivision to sort of where they're at today. But most of those people, some of them I know, are not new home buyers, as Councilor Dolan said. So they're sort of making a conscious decision on their part, and it comes down to, once we could figure out what the cost is, sort of what's the impact to me. So you could easily run these numbers through changing the cost assumption and sort of come out with a thing. But I'm struggling with, what does it cost? Nobody can answer that. It's $3,000, it's $5,000, it's $7,000, it's $20,000. I mean, these are all numbers we've heard, and that's sort of where I'm as close. I think I'm as close as I've ever been to sort of supporting it, but I'm still struggling with, what does this cost the new homeowner? And nobody has been able to answer that and say, it's this because of this and this and this and this, or I built one and it's this and this and this and this. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
So, Council Holmes, since his comments were directed to me, may I answer him?
One second.
Give me a shot to agree with you, would you? It costs money to have this. And a lot of them are a lot of it is luxury items you're forcing on a new home builder. A starter home today has got to be $450. 5-room ranch with a 2-stall garage? More money, right?
Less than 3, I would say.
You're putting a burden. You say punishment, I sort of agree with you. It's a punishment on somebody trying to get in at that level. And it makes a difference over a 30-year mortgage. I think Mr. Capernegro was absolutely right. If it's another $3,000, it's an impact. And from the builders I've talked to about it, it's more than 3,000. It's probably closer to 8 for that 5-room ranch with a 2-stall garage. So if it's $8,000 over 30 years, I don't care what you get in rebates, people are having trouble coming up with that 20% down. So $8,000 makes a big difference. I think you're punishing that group of people. The people that are about building $750,000, $800,000 homes, once their kids get out of college and they're out of the house, they're gone anyway. Those people are moving to Attleboro because we've got a new high school going up. It's a relatively safe community to live in. They're here for the perks. But this is just another piece of state mandates or push, and it hurts that middle-class person. We don't need it. The building code's close enough. I asked Bill, and I love Bill, and I asked him tonight, if it's so important and it's so right, let the state put it in the building code. That's where it belongs. Let them do it. They're dangling a carrot in front of everybody's nose. You can get $250,000 in grants, but you got to spend it on energy-efficient items like electric cars. Norton's got some electric cars. They can't even get them serviced. They're ahead of their time. So why should we be ahead of our time and hurt people? And this hurts people, as far as I'm concerned. I won't vote for it.
So, boy, I am just really confused, to be honest with you.
I'll take you out for a drink after, you won't get confused.
Thank you, Peter. I am so torn. I have not voted for it in the past. I get to where I'm almost this close to saying yes, and then I hear something and I go this close to saying no, and then I go back to yes and back. I am just really torn. For all of the reasons that Councilor Conti mentioned, for the reasons that Councilor Cooper and also you, Pete. What I've been trying to wrestle with is what is the benefit to the purchaser, the homeowner, the person that comes in to buy the house. I don't give two poops about the state and their desire to give us money if we do what they say. You know, I agree, it's the carrot, being dangled. I'm concerned about the homeowner. Do they come here and then are they planning, I'm gonna get a 2-bedroom, I'm just gonna do a 1,000 square foot small home ranch. I wanna build it because, my kids have all moved out. I want a tiny home. The Capernegro home, the old Cap homes. You just want a little house. What is that going to cost them if they have to do this? And will they, if I knew in my head that in 5 years or 3 years or whatever, they would recoup the damage because they're saving, as Councilor Cooper said, in his bills. He's saying that. He's clearly saying it's all electric and okay, and yeah, this is happening, this is happening. I've heard the horror stories. I'm sure some of you got, the fan never stops. It just goes on. And, some part of me says, oh my God, would I want to listen to that all day? How loud it is, I don't know. I haven't been in one of these efficient homes. We did our home all over, and it is efficient. We did it ourselves, not because anybody told us we had to. And I did it without Mass Save. We just did it ourselves. We wanted it to be tight. I have a lot of windows, and I like them being open, so, you know, that kind of thing doesn't really bother me. But I lock them all in the winter, you know, to make sure there's no leaking air or whatever. But it's very energy efficient because of that. But it was a decision I made on an old house, a very old house. I guess I am struggling with if they're making the money back. If I could say to myself, okay, you're going to spend this much on a new home, and I think it's not just young families. I wouldn't say it's somebody that wants to build a 3-bedroom, 3-car garage, or a 5-bedroom. I don't think it's just that. I think it's some of the older people that do have some kind of finances, and they want to move out of their large home into a smaller home. Well, we're affordable smaller home, but where are those? Are we helping them do that? I don't know. I am seriously really torn, and go back and forth. So that's my comments. I don't know what I'm going to do, quite frankly.
Thank you. I'm gonna say a few things too. So, because a lot of people have brought up affordable housing, this, you know, I don't feel like the cost of this would add to, like we're saying, $500,000 homes. And those individuals, like Councilor Dolan said, haven't been presented with a choice. You know, there was a point in time when we didn't have inspectors come in a house before you bought a home. Now it's just, of course you have your house inspected. Mm-hmm. If people knew that there was an opportunity to ask for this, I'm sure they would be asking. So to say it's not market driven, I don't even know if homeowners are aware that they just see, oh, it's energy efficient. They may not know that there's an extra step. You can get a HERS, you can request a HERS. So I don't really feel like that's a good argument. All the former administration, this current administration, everybody is telling us this is the way this is the way we're moving. Unfunded state mandates, guys, don't drop out of the sky. What happens is that they offer us some grants. Some of the communities that jumped onto this early on have gotten $2 million in grant money from green communities. Where are we? We're in the last 22% still saying, should we do this? Come on. Of course we should be doing this. There's going to be a point where it's going to be mandated and it's going to be no grant money. Do we want to be in that position? We just closed 2 accounts that we redid a boiler at, I think it was Hyman Fine and one of the other schools. That was money that we could have used for this. I could go through, excuse me. No, I could go through the whole capital improvement book. I could go through the whole capital improvement book and highlight exactly how we could use it.
That's all I can say is point of order.
So I could highlight so many areas in the capital improvement book where we could utilize this money. How can we say no to that? We are not in a position to say no to that. And I'm shocked to hear that. I understand that we may not have the exact numbers. It's going to be a cost, but you get the benefit back when you start to get your bills in, your gas bill, your oil bill, your electric bill. So I would strongly encourage everybody to think about those points. There was a point in time when, well, I'll just stop there because I feel like I've said a lot. Any other comments? Vice President Preco.
Thank you, Councilor Holmes. Similar to Councilor Reynolds, that sounds good. Well, maybe you're right about that. It's a difficult thing, but as a collaborative effort of all the conversation that's taken place here tonight, Councilor Blair said, you know, people want to come to this city. There are lots of perks that are here. We're building a new high school. We have excellent school systems. We have shopping. There's a variety of things here that are really good about Attleboro. So that's the draw. And I would have to say that whether these numbers are accurate or there's some nexus between the two of them, I don't know if that would be a deterrent. If this is where I want to live, if that extra couple grand is going to be a deterrent to me actually living here or moving to Taunton because they don't have a stretch code. So that's that was just kind of what my thoughts on that were. Is I don't necessarily believe that it would be a deterrent. I understand that there is, you know, we've had the building community come out. Bill Ward, you know, he builds beautiful, efficient homes. One of the biggest complaints that I get from individuals that are in the older population is that they're having a hard time paying their electric bills and paying, you know, their heating and gas. And so those are the things that we have to take into consideration. There's a couple of people I know that are on a $10 a month payment plan, and they know that they will never ever pay off their electric bill in their entire life. So I'll be supporting the not the Green Initiative. Excuse me. Let me fix that. I'll be supporting the stretch codes because I think in this particular instance, the grant money opportunities, that's a selfish reason, in my opinion, to make a decision on this. Adopting the Green Initiative, I kind of have to take that out of this. What I think about it is I take great stock in what Bill McDonough has to say. I took great stock in the former building inspector when this came up last time. Those were the reasons why I voted. That was the reason why I voted last time, and the reason why I'm changing my mind this time. And I think that I don't think adopting the stretch code will prevent people from building homes here, moving here, older couples from building what they need to because it's a couple extra $1,000 more. It could be $5,000, it could be $10,000, it doesn't matter. If you want to live in Attleboro, you're going to live in Attleboro. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments?
Thank you. So I too am one of those people that has been sitting here all night not knowing where I'm going with this vote, and I'm glad we're not voting it tonight, just getting it out of committee. At the first public hearing, I was kind of blown away that we only had 2 builders. With all the building that's going on in the city of Attleboro, we had 2 builders that showed any interest whatsoever in coming to speak, either against, neither for, or for it. 2, that's it, that's all we had. 2, but they're 2 popular guys. One spoke against it, the other one spoke neither for nor against, I believe. That's Bill Ward, spoke neither for nor against. Joe Caponegro against. I got his point, I got Joe's point. Like he's saying, hey, and this incentive with us getting money back from the state, it's our money. Just give it to us. Why do we have to, implement this stretch code and then you're gonna give us money back? Like, what's the point? If you really feel strongly, then make it across the board, the whole state of Massachusetts, mandatory. So, after that first public hearing, I wanted to speak with somebody who I had heard was very knowledgeable on the stretch code, and he speaks quite freely on it as well. His name is Nick Riccio. He's the Foxborough building inspector. I had a great conversation with him, came out of there saying, all right, I'm not for this. I'm just not for this. And then I have gotten a few constituent calls with regards to this. And, you listen to what everybody says. And one of them happens to be Mike Davis, who you may say, Councilor Conti, he might not have an interest just because he's not buying a new home, or building a new home. He does have an interest. He has these little kids that are called his grandchildren. That is his interest in the future. So there are people that look to the future and say today that that's their market value. That's what I got from him in my conversation with him. So I don't know where I'm going with this vote. I honestly don't. I don't know, is it good? I'm not sure if this is the best thing for us. I do know that we have a $6 million man who's a wonderful grant writer in our city, and he'll get us the grants if we need. If there's grants to be gotten, Gary Arasian will get them. I'm fully sure of that. But I don't know yet. I honestly don't know, and I have to decide by Thursday. So that's all I have to say about that.
I feel like Godfather Part 3. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. This has been, this is tough. I mean, fundamentally, this is something that usually I stand 100% against. I too had a conversation with former Councilor Davis, and I told him straight out, I said, not 100% sure. I'm leaning towards it 90%. I've talked to Bill Ward about it, but no one can give us the numbers one way or another, and it's important. I mean, we're making decisions that are going to impact people's ability to buy homes, not buy homes. There's just so much gray right now, and this water is so muddy that we haven't had the opportunity to unmuddy the water yet. So this is tough, and I'm with Kate. I'm glad we're not voting this out tonight because, Rick, a lot of what you said tonight I agree with, and, Peter, a lot of what you said I agree with, and Coop, I didn't know where you were going. I'm like, oh, this guy's 100% in for it. Well, maybe not, you know, like, but I think that illustrates 100% where we all are on this, because, you know, I too live in a house that was built by Bill Ward, and it's extremely efficient. And you know what? If there was a stretch code, I guarantee that it would have passed that stretch code thing, the MERS test and all that. So this is a tough one. So, you know, I think there's still some more work to be done on this to find out exactly what is the right thing.
Thank you. Did you want to say that?
So I built a house, and that was 9 years ago. This summer will be 9 years ago. Had I known I had, you know, like you buy an extended warranty, you're like, oh, you know, you don't want to spend the money, but should I buy it on whatever it is you're purchasing? Had I known that I had an option of being more efficient, had anybody approached me with anything, because I'll tell you, when was it that we lost power for a few days and it was winter?
Wow, it was 17.
I have a relatively nice house. It looks good. But let me tell you, after 6 hours, I was freezing. And maybe I wouldn't be, like President Cooper said. I was probably colder than he would have been in Maine with snow up to his windows. So I knew nothing about this. I was given, I'd never built a house before, so I wasn't really given options. So had I had this and had I known about it, and if it was 10 grand, I would have spent it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
So with that being said, Councilor Dolan, you just threw something out there, see, and you said, if I knew there was an option, but this won't be an option once we voted in. So it's not gonna be an option. So if you had an option, if a builder said to you, you know what, we can do this much more efficient, and we can go by the stretch code and we can get a HERS person. If a builder said that to you, then you have an option, but you're not gonna have an option should we vote this in. So
Right.
that's where I'm
But
like.
my point mainly was, Councilor Conti saying nobody's asking for it. I would have asked for it had I known I could ask for it. I would have volunteered for it. I would have raised my hand and been like, all right, let's do this. And if I was to do it again and it was implemented and they're saying, okay, right now you have to pay an extra 8 grand. I don't know the numbers clearly. I would still build the house. I would still buy the house. I would still build it.
But that's an option.
No, even if I wanted to move to Attleboro, if I didn't do what I did, if I wanted to move to Attleboro and they were building a house for me, and I knew it was gonna be 8 grand more, hypothetically, I would still buy the house, knowing that it was efficient.
So I listened to all of you, except Todd. And
Nobody
I've done a
listens to
little
Todd.
bit of going back and forth, but I believe there's, inside of me, just speaking for myself, this is a moral decision for me. I already did mass save, and I can now sleep at night. I have enough insulation up there that it has brought down the temperature of my house. I don't have AC, okay? And we even cut down a few trees around us. I thought I was gonna boil after we had to do that after the storm last year. I also believe in decreasing energy use. I think we have to do that everywhere. I look forward to the city decreasing our own energy use. I believe we can accomplish that. But I also think we have a moral imperative to accomplish that because we're using up so much energy in this world. And I believe very strongly that the people who buy those $700,000 homes, not that I could afford it, but are going to see the benefits. They're going to reap them. Even if it takes 6 or 7 years, they're going to reap the benefits. And I guess it comes down to what do you believe will happen? Will they or won't they reap the benefits? I believe they will. So I will be supporting this.
Councilor Conti, did you want to say?
No, thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to get ready to vote on this, but I would say I thought it was interesting. I didn't even think of that, exactly what Councilor Jackson had said about only 2 builders came forward. I think that even the high school is being built to a certain code. Like, this is just, like I said, this train is just moving. And are we going to kind of keep missing it, or are we going to decide that we really want to get on. But I'll call for a vote. All those in favor to just bring, so this is just, again, to bring to the full council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. And then I will call for an adjournment at 10:04.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 10:04. Thank you.
Public safety emergency management, have no business this evening.
We don't have anything there. So I need motions to sign before we,
Yes, you do need motions.
it's just Public Works, capital improvements,
Let me find it.
licenses, and then the new business.
Make that a motion.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, I want at least two. Awesome, thank you. Thank you.
I get home with my wife.
What do you want, one, Kate? Yeah.
I get home
I have
with
one
my
for you. I
wife.
have one for you, just have committees, and then he can have his back.
No, I'll have one just first.
She knows I'm happy.
Yeah, she knew. We all knew.
Oh, yes.
This is gonna be my daughter. Who's she on? My young one.
Good discussion, Richard.
Watching you.
The more you talk about
I'm
it,
just having a heart attack.
Have a discussion, sir.
Oh, there we go, she's fine.
I get it. I do it more building team.
Listen, she's 16 and she's in my car. Oh my God. Yeah, excuse me, like, you take this time to tell me that?
Thanks a
No.
lot.
Who'd you get that?
JW.
Yeah,
going up.
tell them for real.
Yes, I
You've
do.
only got,
Oh my word, sorry about that. I'm just like, you know, I get just in a bit of a panic, you know, like, it's 10 o'clock and I haven't heard from her.
With the one who
That's too late, Mom.
It's not. Dad's not home either.
oh, that's his, that's Joe's cousin's kid.
Diana's not gonna be here. Thursday.
All right.
That's why we are building. Okay. But he's built very big.
Okay. I'm gonna call the municipal council back to order at 10:07. At this time, we'll go on to the reading of the mayor's communications. However, pay attention and be quick, because we're gonna waive the reading and I'm gonna assign them by number.
I love it.
The only one I would like you to read is the loan order, which is item number 2. Sure. Thank you.
July 16th, 2019, dear municipal councilors.
Item number 1 is city property and claims committee, please.
In furtherance of the Water Department's fiscal 2020 to 2024 capital improvement program, three-cycle municipal water system plan, annual distribution system rehabilitation program, part 3, my administration is moving forward with a capital project to replace approximately 5,200 linear feet of water main on Steer Street. This project is explained in greater detail in a memorandum from Superintendent of Water, Courtney Wunschel. Copies in your packets. As shown below, a loan authorization of $1,700,000 rounded is now needed for this project. 5,200 linear feet of water main replacement construction is $1,100,000. Road restoration construction is $250,000 for a total construction of $1,350,000. Design, building, and oversight is $195,000. Advertising, $1,000. In contingency, $110,000. For a total project cost of $1,656,000. If, after all bids are received and verified, this loan amount is greater than the actual cost, then I will be requesting that the loan order be reduced appropriately. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $1,700,000 is appropriated for the permitting, bidding, construction oversight, and construction costs associated with the replacement of approximately 5,200 linear feet of water mains, including the road restoration on Steer Street, Attleboro, Massachusetts, collectively the project, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $1,700,000 under Chapter 29C of the General Laws and or Section 8, Subsection 5 of Chapter 44 of the General Laws, or any other enabling authority, that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this order in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please. Number 3 is Personnel and Human Services. Number 4, Capital Improvements and City Development. Number 5, Public Safety and Emergency Management. Number 6, Zoning and Land Use. Number 7, Personnel and Human Services. 8 is Public Works Committee, please. And number 9, would you read for the record item number 9 as well?
I would be
Thank you.
pleased to. As you may recall, on February 19th, 2019, I sent your honorable body a loan authorization request of $2,700,000 for 8,800 linear feet of water mains on Reed Street. This loan authorization was approved on April 16th, 2019, and again on June 4th, 2019. An essential component of the Reed Street water main project was the city's ability to utilize the water main on Roy Avenue near Hill Roberts Elementary School for water looping purposes during construction. At some point after the loan authorization was sent to your municipal body, and during the design phase of this project, it was discovered that the Roy Avenue water main was leaking in an area where it crosses under the 7 Mile River. Looping the Roy Avenue water main into the Reed Street project without repairing the leak will cause insufficient water pressure, i.e. fire protection, near a school, which is unacceptable. Insertion valves have been installed to temporarily shut down the leak, but it must be permanently repaired to complete the Roy Avenue loop before the Reed Street water main project can begin. The city's engineers on this project, Peter Howard, have provided the following proposed budget to repair the Roy Avenue water main. Engineering, the design is $36,800, the construction administration is $19,900, the resident project representation is $21,900. And the design includes sub-consultant fees for survey, wetland delineation, and soil boring exploration. Construction is $230,000, which includes mobilization, erosion controls, excavation, directional drilling, connection to existing water main, backfill, and paving. Contingency, $191,400 for a total of $500,000. To ensure that the repairs to the Roy Avenue water main are completed prior to the Reed Street project beginning in the spring of 2020, it is necessary to have access to the loan authorization funds immediately following your honorable body's anticipated approval on or before August 22nd, 2019. However, a provision in the city's charter, 2-9, Section A, would require that the city wait an additional 30 days following the vote to have access to these funds, which would only cause further water leakage, jeopardize adequate water pressure near a school, and ultimately delay the much-needed water main repairs on Reed Street. To cure this problem, I am further requesting that your honorable body vote to treat this loan authorization as an emergency measure pursuant to Section 2-9B of the city's charter. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to refer this matter to the planning board, call for a public hearing on August 20th, 2019, and to approve the following measures at your August 22nd, 2019 meeting. Emergency preamble, that the Attleboro Municipal Council hereby declares that an emergency presently exists relative to the need to repair the water main leak off of Roy Avenue, and that any delay of the authorization of an appropriation of funds to repair such a leak would only jeopardize adequate water pressure near a school and delay the much-needed water main repairs on Reed Street, and therefore hereby votes pursuant to the city charter, Section 2-9B, that an appropriation and loan order for these repairs in the amount of $500,000 may be voted as an emergency measure. Vote on emergency preamble must be separate and passed by 2/3. Ordered that $500,000 is appropriated for the permitting, bidding, construction oversight, and construction costs associated with the repair of a water main leak off of Roy Avenue, Attleboro, Massachusetts, collectively the project, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $500,000 under Chapter 29C of the general laws and/or Section 8, subsection 5 of Chapter 44 of the general laws, or any other enabling authority, that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this order in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. Further, the Attleboro Municipal Council hereby approves this loan authorization as an emergency measure pursuant to Section 2-9B of the Attleboro City Charter. Vote on the loan order must pass by 2/3 vote by the total number of councilors.
Thank you. I think, Steve, I might have told you Public Works, but it's actually Capital Improvements and City Development, as they handled the original loan authorization. So this is, we need to call for a public hearing, Councilor Conti, and the emergency preambles are in here based on advice from bond counsel to include this in the borrowing for the Reed Street project. And in order, it's not an emergency preamble tonight, but it will be after we close the public hearing and want to vote on it. So
I'd like to call for a public hearing on
August 20th.
I'd also like to call for a council tour of the site, and I will make that available through Virginia.
Perfect. Thank you. So the, all in favor of the public hearing on the 20th?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Council Cobus, did you have a question?
If I could just, through you to the chair, because this will be coming up quickly as an emergency preamble next month. If you could look into the contingency, right now it's listed as roughly 83%.
I got that right here, see right here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I got it right here.
And
See right
so,
there.
you'll all be getting a
Yes,
memo
yeah.
from Deb about why the contingency is so high. It's going
yeah,
under the river.
yeah. We need a lot of
The
discussions.
water line is going under
The river.
the river.
Yep.
There's some risks with that.
So, we will have, I will be doing a site tour. I'll invite all the councilors to join me. I will be taking pictures and movies while I'm there, and I will share them with the council if they're not able to attend.
Excellent, thank you. So moving right on, number 10 is city property and claims. 11 is also city property and claims, and so is number 12, city property and claims. Yeah, moving on to other communications.
Yes, we received correspondence from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention advising of the National Center for Health Statistics intention to conduct Bristol County survey beginning July 19th, 2019 through September 20th, 2019. Copies in your packet. We received an application for a Class 2 license from New England Cars, Inc. at 923 Washington Street with 7 customer parking spaces and 33 display spaces.
License committee, please. Council Dolan, would you like to call for a public hearing on, we'll have time, August 22nd, right? It's the Thursday? Yeah, August 22nd.
Sure, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing August 22nd.
Okay. We also received a communication from Andreoni Law Offices regarding the misunderstood letter sent in March referring to the problems on Angelina Street.
Traffic and Transportation Committee, please.
We received a correspondence from Attorney John Jacoby summarizing the school building committee interest in permanent traffic calming measures, public hearing scheduled for July 18th, 2019.
Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee, please.
We received correspondence from Attorney David Mnuchin for JT Automotive LLC requesting an amendment to the recently issued Class 1 license.
License Committee, please.
We received correspondence from a number of residents on Holden Street with suggestion to alleviate traffic and road condition issues.
Traffic and Transportation Committee, please.
We received a request from American Legion Auxiliary Unit Number 312 for September poppy seed drives at 2 grocery stores in Attleboro.
License Committee.
And we received a correspondence from Andy Lipsky of South Attleboro requesting action by the council to address the impact of the expansion by National Grid of the substation on Highland Avenue.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please, and when we talk about any committee, I can give you some update from the neighborhood meeting that the mayor attended.
And that is all, Mr. President.
Thank you. And we will go to the committee reports, and as usual, we'll start with Council Jackson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Reporting for Public Works Committee from the docket of June 25th, 2019. I entertain a motion to strike the following item from the docket. I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $6,000 from account Water Enterprise Fund Chemicals account to Water Enterprise Fund Professional Services to pay for security cameras for the water pumping station and the water treatment plant.
Second.
Thank you. I have nothing further to say this evening on this matter.
Thank you. Which requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
You're striking it, right, okay? Yes.
Sorry, Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no further business this evening for Public Works, but would like to call for a committee meeting at the appropriate time. 2 days, I guess.
Thank you. Council Waterman.
The Human Services Committee did not have any business this evening.
Committee meeting at the
Next appropriate time.
Thank you. Council Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for the Capital Improvement City Development Committee, I have two motions to bring before the council this evening. From the docket of June 4th, 2019, I entertain a motion to strike the following item from the docket. A communication from Planning Board Chairman Paul Denisi dated May 14th, 2019 regarding the support to purchase a Vector truck for the DPW identified as urgent in need in the capital improvement plan for 10+ years.
Second.
Thank you. Motions in order. Any questions or additions?
I have no comments, Mr. President.
Thank you. Motions in order requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the docket of June 4th, 2019, I entertain a motion to strike the following item from the docket. A communication from Planning Board Chairman Paul Denisi dated May 14th, 2019 regarding the purchase of a plotter scanner for the Department of Planning to replace an outdated large-scale plotter.
Second.
Thank you. Motions in order. Any comments?
I have no comments, Mr.
Any
President.
questions? Seeing none, the voice vote is required. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
That concludes the business that the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to a meeting Thursday night.
Thank you. Council Copus.
Zoning and land use does not have a business tonight, and I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Excellent. Vice President Parika.
Transportation and traffic has no business this evening and calls for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you.
Budget and Appropriations has no business, and we'll call for a meeting at the next appropriate time, please.
We're done with.
Reporting for Licenses Committee, I have two items this evening from the docket of July 17, 2018. I entertain a motion to strike the following from the docket. A communication dated July 12, 2018 from Zoning Enforcement Officer William McDonough regarding violation for unregistered vehicles at 11 Horton Avenue.
Second.
Thank you. Motions in order. Any questions or comments?
No.
Seeing none, a voice vote is required. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of February 19, 2019, I entertain a motion to strike the following from the docket. A communication dated January 29, 2019 with a complaint from August 18, 2018 against Old School Auto Sales, 187 Cumberland Ave, Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you. Motions in order. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, this also requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Anything else? Council Dolan?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
getting late.
That's all the business I have this evening, and I'd like to call for a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great. Council Reynolds?
City Property and Claims Committee has no business this evening, but I would like to call a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great. Council Holmes?
Thank you. Ordinance, Election, and Legislative Matters has no business this evening. We'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Excellent. Council Blair?
Public Safety and Emergency Management has no business this evening. We call for committee meeting Thursday. Right?
Great. There is no old business. There is one item of new business, and for that, I recognize Councilor Cobus.
I move to refer the following matter to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation. A proposed resolution to suggest the administration conduct a retrospective of a natural gas leak on Torrey Street. a resolution of the Attleboro Municipal Council to suggest the administration conduct a retrospective analysis of a gas leak on Torrey Street. Whereas on April 27, 2019, a car accident at 124 Emery Street helped officials detect a natural gas leak in the vicinity of Emery Street and Torrey Street, resulting in houses being evacuated. And whereas Columbia Gas discovered and fixed a grade 1 gas leak on Torrey Street, which was venting natural gas from the street into the evacuated houses. And whereas on April 22nd, 2019, days before the natural gas leak was detected, the Attleboro Water Department fixed a water main break on Torrey Street. And whereas on March 4th, 1998, an explosion caused by a natural gas leak in the basement of a house on George Street in Attleboro killed 2 city workers and injured 7 others. And whereas on September 13th, 2018, excessive pressure in a natural gas line owned by Columbia Gas caused explosions and fires in more than 40 homes across Andover, Lawrence, and North Andover. Now therefore be it resolved that the Municipal Council of the City of Attleboro suggests the Mayor of the City of Attleboro conduct a retrospective analysis of the natural gas leak on Torrey Street and an analysis of the policies and procedures in effect under which the incident occurred. Results of the analysis, as well as any policy or procedural changes, should be reported back to the Municipal Council.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Council Cope.
So this is something I feel very strongly about, and in looking at this more, this is a real public safety issue. It's not something I'm looking to place blame on anybody for. My main interest here is there was a gas leak that we were really lucky to have detected because of this car accident. It appears to have occurred as a result of a water main break, and I'd like to understand more if there are policies and procedures that we could enact, or that the administration could enact, in order so that we could have detected this sooner. That's all it's about, is trying to protect public safety.
Thank you. Councilor Delacio and then Councilor Conti.
Thank you. I'd like to add to what Councilor Corbett was saying is, the other thing, the reason why we brought this forward is from my vantage point. We're sitting here tonight, we're talking about water main leaks, we're talking about all these other projects that are going on across the city. We have an aging infrastructure. What we saw in September of 2018 was catastrophic. I look at it through a different vantage point, through my professional life outside of City Council, and I saw the impact it had on residents in those communities through them having to come into the registry and things of that nature. I think here, and Todd, I appreciate your pointing out that this isn't about placing blame. This is about prevention. And, I think looking around, we've all, in one way or another, we've gone to a compressor station meeting with CARC, or we've had something similar that we've talked about here. We've had 2 resolutions. I think this is the responsible piece of business to be able to go through and identify something, because we want to be as proactive as we can, because if we're reactive in this situation, it's most certainly too late.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be supporting this new business because I think I've told anyone who will ask me that I think municipal councilors are part investigative reporters. No offense, George. that we have to go dig. And I find that that's been the case in the 10 years that I've been a city councilor. And sometimes that digging leads to some fresh air and sunlight that's really revealing about the way the city and these corporations operate. And I know earlier this evening, Councilor Jackson was really hot about the issue on the cameras, but you know what? I thought the mayor's response to the councilors brought a lot of fresh air and sunlight into the administration process, and I really appreciated that. And I see the same thing potential here, is that if we pass this resolution, and if the mayor does his forensics and he reports to the council, I think we're all gonna learn something. And I'm very much in favor of it, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Holmes, did you have or Reynolds? I thought I saw. No.
I think it's great that you don't want to place any blame, but I think for myself, I think that strongly I want to know how that this could have been bypassed, and if it was bypassed or somehow was unseen, how could that have happened? Because we're talking about people's lives. I mean, people's lives. And if we have departments that are digging in areas that are unsafe, because they are all over the city in ways, then they need to have something, some policy in place that someone is checking, or they need training around that. And it's our duty to make sure that the administration does that, make sure these things are in place, and that the people that have been hired in this city to oversee a department are clear on what those protocols are. And so for me, it's much more than just finding out what there is. For me, it's saving the lives of the people that live in this city that count on us to do the job properly and correctly. And that's my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Curtis.
Thank you. And the one thing I forgot to mention is we're asking for this retrospective analysis, and whether it's in my civilian career or in the military, after any mission, there was always an after-action report and an after-action review. In my civilian job, anytime something goes wrong or there's any sort of an incident, there's a retrospective analysis. Now, it's entirely possible that either the water department or the administration has already done this and we're just not aware of it. But I thought where this was so important, and you're right, lives could have been at risk. I think it's incredibly important that we publicly request this information and and if it hasn't been done, request that it be conducted.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Bussi?
Just a comment, my hope from this to that point, you know, at work, especially working for the Commonwealth, we have a lot of unhappy people come through our doors, and we have to do an incident report, whether it's someone caught cheating on a permit, whether it's someone threatening one of my clerks, whether it's, you know, someone stealing license plates. This stuff happens, right? My hope is that this spurs on maybe a new sort of policy, a new sort of process in terms of how we look at these sorts of things, because these things are going to happen. They're going to happen, and it's how we deal with it which is going to make the difference going forward.
Great. Anything else? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and I'm going to refer that to the Zoning and Land Use Committee. Since you've done so much of the legwork, it just doesn't seem right to pass it off to another council. You've had the discussions with Columbia Gas. You can work with the administration and also refer it to the administration, and that concludes the business for tonight. Yes.
Just like tonight?
Yes, absolutely. It will go exactly as we did tonight, because we have to do the things that were in tonight's communication for the committee. At this time, well, when I met with the mayor several hours ago, we said there wouldn't be a communication for Thursday, so that might, but that was then, so who knows what happens in the next day or so.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
From who? From who? Oh. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Good night.